Hello, everyone, and welcome to Count Up Cast, your weekly show where we talk about the Final Fantasy series leading up to the launch of Final Fantasy 15. This week, we get to our way to talking about Final Fantasy X, Morag's favorite joke in all of Final Fantasy fandom.
Yeah, I enjoyed it until
Twitch.
Until fandom.
Until Twitch, pretty much.
Kotaku's the one that went and posted the damn article first, I think. Anyway,
so
Kotaku ruins everything.
You guys already know who's joining me. We got Mr. Happy, that's me, in case you didn't know somehow at this point. After 8 shows. And then, of course, on all of us have our own respective streams. We have Morag, who you've already heard me make fun of once, so start the counter for that one. And Slack, who's smiling as well.
That was you making fun of me?
Yeah, I'm not very good at it. Well, here's the thing. If I make fun of you...
Just keep laughing and I will not even know.
Okay. Ha, 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 ha.
Are you sneezing?
Oh my god, that scared the
Evil
shit
Santa,
out
get out of here!
That scared the ever-loving shit out of me.
Too soon, Evil Santa.
That actually scared the... Like, somebody's ears just exploded on my stream at the very least. That much I can promise. Alright, so, this week, we get to talk about Final Fantasy X, gentlemen.
Yeah.
For anyone looking at this, did you change the schedule yet? Does it still say Final Fantasy IX?
No, I changed it. I changed it all last weekend.
Okay. I remember you saying you were going to, like, after the show. I just didn't check to see if it did. You did it live. Live. So we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy X this week. The first Final Fantasy game on the PlayStation 2. It's one thing to note. One of the highest-selling Final Fantasy games of all time. And we all played the Steam version. I think that's fair to assume. None of us played the PS4 or PS3 versions or the PS2 version. No, none of us. All Steam. The Steam version is the superior version, pretty much.
By far.
It's the definitive version.
It is the definitive version.
For now. Give it another 5 years. There'll be another HD super realistic re-release, I'm sure.
Well, you know what? I don't blame them because they just ended up doing like a patch a couple of weeks ago for it. I don't blame them if they go back and do a 4K version of it.
You know what they're going to do? They're going to do a complete 3D movie version of Will. That's what they're going to do.
No, they're going to release an official Tidus Fantasy OST version.
Well, you can already mod it in, so.
Yeah, but they'll release it officially.
All right. That's great. That's a feature we need. And then there's an achievement that says beat the game with this turned on.
I'm in.
No, you're not.
No.
No, and Morag would have to mute his own stream for himself because he has it banned in his channel. You can't ha-ha on his channel without getting timed out.
That's not true.
You wanted to time people out on my channel for doing
it's your channel. It's not mine, though.
All right. Well, Final Fantasy X is going to be a fun one to talk about. There's a lot to talk about here because in some ways they went back to some old school methods of handling Final Fantasy in this game, but at the same time they did a lot of new things. So we're going to do it in the same order we've been doing it every week. We're going to start by talking about party composition, the different characters, the story, and then we'll get into actually progressing through the game. So Final Fantasy X, once again, you have 6 party members. You get to pick 3 of them. And that's how now you have 6 by the end, or sorry, 7. My bad, 7, because I always forget about Kamari. Nobody fucking uses it. You're forced to use it for one fight, and I don't touch him otherwise. So I always forget about him. And you get to have 3 at any given time, but there's one big thing that you're allowed to do in Final Fantasy X. I don't make use of it nearly as much after the early game. You're allowed to switch party members on the fly into the fight. And that is probably the best use of having a cast larger than 3 party members that I think we've seen up to this point.
I'd also go and say that it's the birth of what we kind of get to see in both kind of 10-2 and in.
I'm sorry, what? Is that a game? Does that exist?
I mean, I sneezed.
Oh, okay.
10 something. I don't know.
A lot like a chew. I can see.
It was like a dream or something. I don't know.
10-2 like that. Yeah. Let's sneeze.
Yeah.
No, you're thinking of Tidus.
Tidus. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Tidus was the dream.
Right. Yeah. So continue your thought. Sorry, I just said.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, it kind of starts into being able to, instead of having a character that is, like, specialized at one thing, you can kind of think of having each character as a different role in your party if you plan it out that way. just like with 13 and the paradigm system, you get to swap in and out different roles for your party members at that time. Even with 10-2, with the dress spheres, you get to choose. So we get to see the introduction into that and how that will end up playing into it.
What about you, Slack? You a fan? Did you actually make much use of the whole switching party members thing past the early game?
Yeah, this is one of the things that I love about Final Fantasy X. Swapping in characters that have a specialized thing, and you want to bring them in to react to this enemy being there. It runs into some issues because you kind of... If you're going for a min-max gameplay, then you want to go in your menu after every battle and have your top 3 characters be the 3 fastest, which are almost guaranteed going to be Tidus, Yuna, Riku for the early game. I ended up making advantage of this. I tried to level up every character to keep them leveled up because they all specialize. There's always something for them to do. Yeah. So I tried to bring in every character in every battle up until around right when we got the airship, when the world opens up to you.
Okay, so despite the fact that you could trade in party members, I think that one minor annoyance with that is if the current 3 die, the other 4 don't get to.
That has always pissed me off. It is the dumbest mechanic I have ever thought of.
In 12, it will be remedied. In 12, yes. That's not the case. In fact, 12, it's highly abusable. But here in 10, it's like, well, that's kind of always pissed me off in every Final Fantasy game that has like a cast like that. It's like, well, they're all traveling together, and these 3 died, but the other 3 are like, oh, they're dead. I'm out. That's it.
Fuck saving the world. I give up.
I can see what they're trying to do with it. And that's, I think, another reason why they kind of, I'd almost say, like, made it so then with both, like, 10-2 and 13, that they remove the fact that you can actually swap out members in the battle instead. I don't know, it would kill the balance of the game if you could just swap people in. They'd have to, like, nerf all the stats by, like, half or something.
So one of the big things about Final Fantasy X is that while everyone kind of starts with a specialized role, the sphere grid, which we'll talk more in depth about later, kind of allows the customization of what they actually do. Now, in the Steam version, which we all played, you have a choice between the normal and the expert sphere grid. Normal kind of forces you to move into that predestined role until the very end, or until you get the item to unlock other roles. And then in the expert, you kind of can go wherever you want right from the get-go. So first of all, which grid do we all use? Expert?
Expert.
Okay, so we were all stupidly overpowered, in other words. Did you guys find yourself keeping them somewhat same to the roles they started with, or did you immediately branch out and do different things?
Branched.
I stuck with it right away, because the whole game design of FF10 makes it feel like we've talked about, it feels like each character has a specific role, and then there's an enemy that they're there to beat the crap out of for you and to save your skin from dying to. So for me, the idea of like going, oh, well, I'm just going to have 2 black mages on this playthrough. I'm going to take Yuna out of her area and move her over into Lulu's because screw it, why not?
To be fair, I do that. I'm always move Yuna to Lulu's because
really?
Yuna's a better black mage than Lulu is.
It's the same thing I did. And I'm not going to tell you right now, like using Albed potions is your healing. That's all.
It's pretty effective healing, unless you need the really big ones. And then the game kind of does a pretty good job of giving you enough items
to like, mega potions, and, like the wazoo too.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't like it. I don't like it. The game feels like it's structured in a way where it's a bad idea to be like, I don't want Auron to go and grab armor break later on and stuff like that.
Get out of expert grid. Go back to your standard.
I actually wanted to check out the expert grid. For a first playthrough, this is the first time I've ever used expert grid, so that's part of why I wanted to stick to it. And it was really cool. I like that it is actually opened up. I am going to throw something up into our group chat here. I don't know if you guys have seen this.
Got the flattened out grid?
Yeah, it's a whole link to
I've seen that.
The straightening out the sphere grid thing. And there's actually an image on there. I'm going to post it up in my chat as well, if anybody in my chat wants to check it out. And you guys can drop in yours if you want. There's an image on there that shows you the original grid and how one of the things everybody always loves about Final Fantasy X is, oh, the sphere grid, there's so many options. Oh my god, look at all the stuff you can do. It's huge. And there's no options. It's a straightforward shot for almost every single character. The only branches that there are like branches off to get a couple stats, and then you just turn around and go back down your section of the sphere grid. The Expert Sphere Grid actually does do a lot to fix that. It is a lot more open than the previous grid. Early on in each character's side of the Sphere Grid, there's a spot where they can branch out, and then on their next section, there's another spot where they can go to somebody else's Sphere Grid. And on the next section of their Sphere Grid, there's another branch where they can go to someone else's Sphere Grid. There's a lot of options here that they actually do a great job of with the Expert Sphere Grid that I didn't take advantage of.
I dropped the Expert flattened one out there in chat, too.
I do want to see this, yeah.
It actually does a really good job of showing which ways you can end up going and whatnot.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to the end of a path, if you want to go into another one right away. Or seeing like what paths meet up, so then you can actually hop easily with just like a level 3 or level 4 lock on it, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, regardless of Sphere Grid, eventually you can break into the point of homogenization of characters, which has been a big topic over the course of the weeks. This kind of returns to the one that Slack initially brought up back in 6, where everyone's the same except for their overdrive, pretty much, and maybe maybe their starting stats, which again you can completely manipulate to be all max by the end of the time you're done with the Sphere Grid. With that in mind, were there characters you actually preferred by the time you were reaching the end of the game, or were you not picky at all because of the homogenization?
Well, due to the way that a lot of characters' Sphere Grids worked, their own Sphere Grids in the Expert Sphere Grid, the way that their stats get to a certain point makes them much easier to use and to continue developing once you get towards the end of the game. Waka, Tidus, and Auron all have huge damage. Waka, of course, it does the most damage in the game. I still don't have Tidus's final overdrive. I don't have Blitz Ace.
It's a nasty grind.
Ever to
Man, let me tell you about the Blitz Ace grind. You want to know how to do that real quick?
I don't know. I got it. But I don't know how to grind it quickly.
So you know the bridge before Seymour, the second Seymour fight?
High bridge, yeah.
There's the flamethrower guys there. I don't know if it's deliberate, but they give twice the overdrive if you have Slayer on when you kill them. So if there's 3 of them in a group, and Tidus uses what's the one before Blitz Ace? Energy Rain?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you use Energy Rain, one-shot them all, he'll get a full overdrive immediately, and you just do that over and over again on 4 times speed.
Huh. Weird.
Yeah. So, it's really cheap.
I ended up doing monster farming to do all the Monster Arena stuff, so
I've gotten most of the Monster Arena stuff unlocked now. That's where a lot of my time went. And I still don't have Blitz Ace.
Yeah, I just have to do Sin and a little bit of the desert left, I think. Oh, and Omega Runes, too.
There you go.
Yeah, I haven't... Have you 10-capped all the monsters, or are you just trying to... Okay, wow.
I've 10-capped everything minus those 3 last zones.
That's about what I have left. I have 3 or 4 areas left to 10-cap.
I'm not going to lie. I cheated, and I pulled up my 10-cap save file from last year. I was like, I'm sorry, from earlier this year. I was like, I'm not fucking doing that again. You're crazy if you think I'm fucking doing that again.
It is one of the worst grinds in the game. We'll get around to that stuff later, but the Sphere Grid...
Party composition.
Yeah, party composition. I used Tidus and Waka because they have the most damage potential by far. And especially early on, they start off strong once you're getting into the post-game stuff already. And then my final slot was Auron. He also starts off very strong. He has that first strike celestial weapon, which can be great later on for farming things like the Great Malbros, which I think I've already got those capped. But getting through the Omega Ruins on my first ever playthrough of the game, that was very important for those fights.
Yeah. When I was a kid and I didn't know you could provoke to stop the breath attacks.
I didn't know that until this playthrough. I read a guide and they were like, use provoke and they won't use bad breath. And I'm just like...
I know.
It's that easy?
It's a game changer.
All I was trying to do was just try and DPS him before that happened. Cast haste, get up, go, kill.
Have Auron teach him flee, have him with his celestial weapon, and just run away. It's that simple.
Until you need to catch them, and then you need ribbons. Oh, go have fun getting ribbons, by the way.
Anyway, I ended up, for my party, I ended up using, in one slot, it was either Riku and Kamari that went back and forth because they had their mix, because they had using items. Kamari went down Riku's path just to get all of the awesome speed and accuracy, and then he started going down Auron's path, which, then backwards, so he was getting all the strength bonuses, so he's now probably one of my strongest characters and fastest characters now. And then one slot, is meant for Orin, and then the last slot, which can also be swapped out for Waka too, depending on what he's doing. And then Titus just sits there and casts haste on people.
That's the first thing I do with Titus on expert. I go right to Hastaga every time.
That's what I did. Well, I went all the way around.
I went all the way around.
I went directly to it. I was like, there's enough. Well, I also, the way I played the game, I wasn't short on strength by doing that. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay, yeah. Oh man, the thing that sucks is that by the time I got Hastaga, I don't even use it anymore. I've got auto haste armor. Yeah. I got there, and then right afterwards, it was like, okay, now the world's opened up. Now I can farm. Now I can get chocobo feathers and make auto haste on.
And some of those augmentations are too cheap, man. Auto
Phoenix.
Yeah,
that's the whole game.
Auto Phoenix, really?
International version, you don't have Auto Phoenix. Goodbye.
Yeah, I'm not using Auto Phoenix until I absolutely have to.
All right, Dark Aeons then.
Pretty much. No, not even Dark Aeons. I was told that the only fight you honestly need it for is the last one.
Penance.
Penance is the only one that you actually need Auto Phoenix for. Other than that, though, you're fine.
Yeah, you can get around without dying.
The guide that I have says that the best penance armor is auto haste, auto protect, auto potion with X potions, and plus 20% defense.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm recommending the most. I mean, the Auto Phoenix one is more of a never waste a turn raising in case something goes bad armor.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you'll fall behind because penance is if you fall even for one turn out of the penance rotation, then you're done, pretty much. It's
anyway,
so
part of composition.
So for me, I'll pretty much use anybody other than Lulu and Kamari, but I'll usually stick with Titus, Yuna, Orin. Every time I play through, I stick with those. Only reason I won't use Waka, I do not want to have to get the world champion, pretty much.
I don't.
Well, you don't have to do world champion.
If I'm gonna play him,
you can make your own break damage.
I'm not gonna do that. That's no more appealing to me than getting the world champion itself in terms of our item farming. So
Blitzball was awful. Do we want to let's have a separate section for Party Comp where we talk about Kamari. I think we should.
I like Kamari.
I want to like him,
but
he's a blue mage. He's a dragoon,
and he's really good in the early game. Yeah, he's good in the early game when he's got the self-heal on Lancet, and then he's got the blue magic is actually pretty strong.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, he's the only character who can never break one hit on any of his attacks.
Oh, yeah, that's what makes him the worst. And then Lulu is second worst.
It's Lulu's second worst only because of how her magic...
It's totally random.
The scale, yeah. So that's the reason why I don't use both of them. I love Waka's attack reels. I just don't like getting the world champion. And then Orin, all of his shit's easy. Yuna's is fucking easy. Yuna's first third of her celestial weapon is like the first part of the game, just chilling on the beach. It's like so satisfying to know I've already got one third done.
I don't know, like so kind of going in the end game stuff. Like once you actually get your airship, you can go out and you can start collecting pieces for people's weapons. You need to collect 3 items: the weapon itself, and then 2 things that power it up. The weapon by itself is complete shit. It's not even worth using whatsoever. But you have to collect 2 more items to make it awesome. And even at that point, as soon as you equip it with those items, you hit your damage break, which means you can start doing more than 9999 damage. But you also get some really cool stats on it as well, too. But honestly, you don't need it to beat the game.
No, by no means. But
you don't need
God damn, does it make the last boss a joke. Yeah, all you need to beat the game is a no-sphere grid Riku.
Yeah, the last time I played through the game, not this time, but last year, I ended up needing to use Riku's mix to get enough HP to survive Jekt. I spent an hour and a half on that final fight, going through the cinematic leading up to it, going through that little mini game where you do the crystals and everything, just to get to that final fight over and over and over. I ended up needing to use Riku's mix. Super broken.
Yeah,
Riku is a broken character.
Yeah, Riku is then the only reason I don't use Riku is because I don't want everybody being like, oh yeah, using Riku. Huh?
I haven't used mix at all so far on my playthrough. I won't. It's too cheap.
I used it one time to kill Seymour Flux.
Yeah,
because he was
anything's fair on Seymour Flux. That's why I kind of like killed him in 3 hits at that point in the game. But I was a little strong for that point in the game.
I did that fight probably 4 or 5 times. That has a huge cinematic before it, and then I said, all right, I'm done. I see where my strategy is, and I know I could eventually beat him right now, but I don't care anymore. I'm done with this. I'm done sitting through him falling off a cliff into himself 18 more times.
Yeah, it's better than Unalesco, where they don't even warn you that you're just going to instantly die if you don't do something.
Yeah,
That'll be fun to
don't
talk
remove that zombie status.
That'll be fun to talk about. All right, so moving on from party composition, we've already kind of started talking about it. Combat in Final Fantasy X. Now, we've been talking about this leading up to this week, how every system since Final Fantasy IV pretty much has used the ATB system, where a bar fills up, you execute an action, bar goes back to 0, it fills up again, you get to do another action. There's been all these minor changes here and there. Some of them let you charge while you're doing actions. Some of them, like 9 last week, have ridiculous ATB tricks that you need to master. 10 said, you know what, we're going back to turn-based.
Yeah.
Pure, unadulterated, turn-based combat. Which I feel worked really well in Final Fantasy X. And it was refreshing after 6 games of not that, pretty much. Yep. Did you guys like this turn-based? Was it good to go back to turn-based after all the ATB?
I liked the turn-based system already. I grew up. The first game I played was Final Fantasy 1 of the Final Fantasy series. So turn-based is not a problem to me. And then this game brings it back, and it does it better than any other game has ever done turn-based, I would say.
Morag?
I'd say definitely. Like, it's by far one of the best ones, especially with them introducing being able to swap characters in and out. So then you have a full handle of how you're gonna play the combat out. Especially when you end up having like 3 characters on the field. So you have 2 that are always in play, and then a third one that's in flux. That you now have 4 roles that last player can end up being. So it gives you so much choice on how you can actually play the game. It's really nice.
The other thing it introduced was the ability to see, based on speed and stat and all that, whose turns are coming up, and plan accordingly.
And being able to see how your actions are going to change the upcoming turns. So you'll get ready to cast haste, and you're like, oh man, I really need Yuna's turn to go up before the boss. I need a heal. If I cast haste on her, is she going to get her turn in time? She is. Then I'm going to cast it on her. She's going to get a huge cure off. I'm not going to use an item.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you so much information and so much control. The one thing that it doesn't do so well is if you go to cast slow on a boss, or you go to cast delay buster,
if it's immune.
if it'll show the change on there, but if it's immune, it doesn't reflect that in the turn order.
I wish it had like a learning process, or like if you end up say detecting it and finding out that it is immune before it does, that does end up reflecting into it. Actually, funny enough, that I used Final Fantasy X when Darkest Dungeon was in early access. I'm like, Darkest Dungeon, do exactly what they did and put it in your combat.
Darkest Dungeon, Darkest Dungeon still did a decent job. It just didn't show you who's like the order of who's going.
They made it so then it showed, like what they did is it showed if their turn was complete that turn, that round. Which
if they had used their turn already, how many turns they had that turn also, basically. Which is all very useful. It's one of those things that, looking back at Final Fantasy 1, you probably would have never thought you wanted. Like, oh, I would love to know the exact order, but then you get it in 10, you're like, I don't know how I'll ever play another turn-based game without that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What was it? What was it? Grandia 2, Skies of Arcadia, not Tales Symphonia. Skies of Arcadia, I know, had it. Grandia 2 had it. There's something else. Did I say Skies of Arcadia? I already said.
You did. That was the first thing you said.
4 times now.
Yeah.
4 times. It was such a great game. If you haven't played Skies of Arcadia, it's so
now
much.
5 times. There you go.
It's so good. It's fun.
It's fun. You heard
Skies
it.
of Arcadia.
Grandia 2 does do a good job of it as well. Grandia 2 gets the problem with it is that it's got the 3D battlefield. Well, 2D battlefield where the characters are moving around, and sometimes the AI gets really dumb, and so they're running around and they're like caught on each other, and so then you would expect them to get their turn off, but they don't.
Yep. But so other than that, though, I don't know if there's anything in particular you want to talk about the combat. The overdrive system being quite different from this other limit, or returning to a more standard limit break, I guess.
Eternal Sonata also did it.
Eternal Sonata. Okay. Also, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which is more recent.
Yes.
Recent. Sorry, I turned into
Is that your Sean Connery impression?
Yeah. Sean Connery. That's very recent of you.
I also the overdrive system. This is probably the best limit break system of the series. Another thing that this game did really, really well.
They did the exact same thing that 7 did, though.
Yeah.
Sort
to a
of.
degree.
To a degree.
I didn't
but they
like
changed
it a
it.
lot more. I enjoyed FF7's system so far the best.
For me, what I like about 10's overdrive is I can choose what charges it, basically, depending on the fight.
That's
You
the
get
good
to
thing.
choose how you charge it.
Fire more. That's all.
And you get to not use it. You can still use attack if your limit is charged.
Right.
Which is great. And then on top of that, the last one, I like the way that you earn new ones in this one more than in 7. In 7, it's a lot more farming. In 10, I like the idea, but they make you wait way too long to get some of the characters' limit breaks. Like Orin, you get through about half the game before he gets a new one. That's terrible.
To be fair, his first one is pretty spectacular because it's an AoE,
Yeah.
at the very least. And his second one's the insta-kill, right?
No,
Or is
Shooting
it-
Star is insta-kill.
Shooting
His
no,
second one, yeah.
That's a second one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you get that when you're like if you hit all of them, you get it in the desert pretty much. Which,
Yeah.
oh man, you do that to the big giant sandworm.
Feels so good to just be like, this thing has 60,000 health. Not anymore. Not anymore, it doesn't.
It's gone. I love it.
But other than that, was there really much else to talk about combat-wise? Because we talked about
I
earlier
feel like
how
there is, but I don't remember what.
the characters homogenize very, very quickly in this
Yeah.
game. Oh, you can change out your... I mean, this kind of goes back to like Final Fantasy's like 4, I guess, where you can change what weapon you have equipped, what armor you have equipped in the middle of a fight. That's
Wasn't
another thing.
really super useful though, unless like because they didn't.
It
give
is
those
if you're
access.
forgetful.
They needed to give more armors earlier on with single effects on it for people to want to go and switch armor mid battle possibly. Like, oh hey, I got a battle, or I have a battle that they're poisoning me, so I'm gonna go and put an anti-poison on then instead, a poison proof. And you just didn't end up getting those early enough, or being able to customize your armor. And
you don't get to customize early enough. You don't get to customize good things early enough.
And even when you do get to customize, it's not very good.
Yeah.
Like a few stats here and there.
Like 90% of the time, I will just keep the same exact weapon and armor equipped throughout the entire game. There's no reason to switch.
You get Yuna's staff from the first trial.
From the first trial, magic plus 8% with sensor on it, and that's all you need.
Yeah, you're good for like half the game at that point.
It's ridiculous. With Tidus, you equip Brotherhood for 90% of the game, plus 15% strength is huge on a weapon that you get for free. Throw on Sensor on top of that, and then Water Strike is bad most of the time.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you get it, the very next place is full of enemies weak to water.
Yeah.
So it's useful for about an hour, but the immediate spot after that, it becomes a liability.
Yep.
So, my chat is giving me some other suggestions for combat things to talk about. Summoning is a big one.
Oh, of course.
Significantly different in this game versus any Final Fantasy game prior.
I'd say since Final Fantasy VII was when people were really being like, why don't you let me summon this guy and then keep him around? How cool would that be? Look at that giant dragon. It would just be smart of the team to keep him around for a minute. And it took them 4 games of people saying that for them to be like, oh, yeah, we should really do something with that. Especially after 9, where it was a very summon-driven game, the spectacle of the summons. And then along comes 10, you get to summon and keep the summon out there while the rest of your team goes away for a little bit. What'd you guys think of this system?
My favorite summon system in all of them. I think the only other one I feel can even compare is in International Edition for 12. Is the only other one that really
I need to make use of that on my playthrough of 12 because last time I played through it, I don't think I summoned more than once.
Regular 12 has it where it's just one party member in the summon.
It's 1.5 minutes, and then in the International, it's like 4 minutes that they stay out for.
It's much better in the International version, yeah. But this easily one of my favorites. I abuse the shit out of summons in this game. I feel like anyone who's played through this game at least once has abused it at some point.
Valivore, Sonic Wings.
Yeah, it may not do a lot, but I'm going to get to go 11 times in a row, basically. Exactly.
It's so ridiculous.
And then especially when, for me, once I got to Shiva, since she's so fast, it's a lot harder for certain enemies to kill her, and she has Blizzara right off the bat, so she has a self-heal built in. Ifrit Shiva, Ixion all end up being really strong for being self-sustainable, while Valfor, you need to teach him Cure for him to remain out in the field for that long. But when you get to Bahamut is where things break, because he is probably going to be your first instance of what is, I guess, another new mechanic. It's not new per se because it happens in Final Fantasy VIII, but you can break the damage limit, and he's very likely going to be the first summon you have that will break the damage limit.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of Final Fantasy X, is being able to raise your cap of damage from 9999 to 99999, 100,000 damage a hit. That's a lot of numbers.
That's a very, very big change. And it's the first time that you can do it consistently throughout the series. While 8 did have 2 attacks, I think, that could break the damage cap.
Had
in that
Eden
way.
and...
Oh, no, then 3. Eden, Cactuar, and Quistis's, whatever her best blue magic is.
I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
But in this, every character can break the damage limit. You just need to either get their Celestials or make a weapon that has break the damage limit onto it. You can break the HP limit. You can break the MP limit if you really wanted to for some reason. I don't know.
The other 2 changes, they nerfed the crap out of Quick Hit in the Steam version, which made me sad.
That's like, I know people kept telling me to use Quick Hit, and I tried it like a handful of times. I'm like,
it's not that much quicker.
Many differences with this.
Well, I mean, so
it's a very small improvement. It sucks in international version, if anybody's wondering.
It's still, given the choice to use it versus not use it, assuming you can afford it MP wise, you should be using it.
Yeah.
But it's I think their MP cost on it's also tripled in the international version.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was 12 in the original. It's 36 here.
Yeah. So that's another big aspect of it.
The other thing on the subject of the summons, it really pisses me off that so many of the boss fights in the latter half of the game just banish your summon right away.
You mean Seymour? You mean Seymour?
Seymour, Unalesca, and then all of the Sin fight.
Unalesca kinda, like, Unalesca doesn't one-shot them because she has a mechanic. She just, her attacks do, like, percentage max health damage. So that's like 50%. Because I was able to, I was able to use all. I mean, they never lasted more than 3 turns against her because what she'll end up doing is taking like 51% of their health once and then another turn later.
You should have you guys actually Slack? You might, and maybe you two Happy. Did any of you guys do some of the arena fights, especially against Don Tonberry?
I have so far.
I love Don Tonberry. My chat knows him and I are best friends.
You should go.
Don Tonberry farming, yeah.
You should go do a summon against him.
Oh yeah, Karma.
Oh yeah. I watched you do that. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he's just like, just stabs the little voodoo doll.
Oh, it was so much funny.
Just to be clear to people listening, when we say break the damage cap, yes, we know there's attacks that are multi-hit prior to 10.
Yes.
That will basically like Knights of the Round or Lionheart.
This is the first time you can hit once.
Yeah, we're talking about in a single hit dealing more than 9,999, not multi-hit where it hits 16 times for 9,999.
Multi-hit is not breaking damage cap. Maybe it is in a single turn, sure, because it's multi-hit, but that's...
But imagine if Knights of the Round could deal 20,000 damage on each of their hits, as opposed to 9,999.
Now that's breaking major damage.
Now we're breaking damage limits.
That's
right now.
2 tastes that taste great together, which 10 also does.
2 tastes that taste great. Wow. On that note. Now, the one thing...
Chocolate and peanut butter,
one big thing about breaking the damage limit in this game is, for the game itself, completely meaningless, because it's just... The bosses aren't designed around you having an item that breaks the damage limit for the story itself. Once you have one, the story bosses, they're sushi.
Yeah, I'm probably not. I'm gonna be probably unequipping them when I finish up the game today.
I am actually really glad that I went ahead and farmed up all of my celestial weapons this time, except for Lulu. I don't care that you did it, Happy. I don't care that both of you did it. It's a terrible thing to do. I'm not dodging. I'm not dodging lightning bolts.
I'm never doing blitzball again. You know what? I would rather, and I've said this on Twitter, I'd rather dodge 500 lightning bolts in a row.
And it'd be mandatory for the game.
Then,
by the way, you did it in the inferior way,
again.
Didn't you, Morag? You didn't reset your blitzball data, did you?
I did for the very last one.
Okay, yeah. Thank God you did it for one of them at least. So for anybody wondering, for the blitzball data, if you reset your data a few different times, you can complete the stuff for Waka's attack reels and for his Jupiter Sigil in 24 Blitzball games without resetting your data. The shortest amount of games you have to play is 44.
44? 43? No, 44. Yeah.
Luckily, you could just
20
score
more games.
Luckily, all you need to do is score once, go back to your goal, pass back and forth to level up, and you're good to go.
Unless it's against the Guado, then they're dumb.
Those guys are dicks.
Yeah.
No, like seriously, like the entire time I played Blitzball, it was get the ball to brother. Brother just runs around in a circle,
gathers them all up,
Guado, and then he actually has to do work, and then pass it to Titus, who's just hiding right next to the goal.
Yep.
Yep.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
If anybody's around Titus, have him do a jack shot, bounce it off of them, and then he makes the shot. Ta-da! Yeah. And then you go swim in your own goal for the next 9 minutes.
Yeah,
that's my favorite part, is swimming in your own goal.
Song request made that interesting.
Song request made that so much better.
Yeah, I only played the one Blitzball match for the tournament and said fuck off for the rest of the game.
Did you win that one?
Yeah, I won it.
Okay.
I won it easy. Easy match, easy life. No, that's because, so you know how to win that game like ridiculously easy. Once you get the ball, you pass it for the entire first half, back and forth between Titus and one other guy. I can't remember. I think it's Wants. I don't remember who the fuck it is. Who, I don't know, one of your teammates. And then you can, if you do it right, you can take a team member and manipulate the 3 of the opponent team to the north side, pass it to the middle, and then you don't even have to worry about bouncing it off 2 people for Jack shot. Yeah. You can do the same thing with Waka for Venom shot if you don't score in the first 3 minutes of the second half.
You know,
the AI in Blitzball is awful.
Well, it's once you figure out how the AI works, you beat that game instantly. It was just more tedious just sitting there.
Also, well, you mentioned brother. I mean, it's just not fun. Yeah, you mentioned brother. Brother completely breaks it as well.
Well, brother, it's like I think any Elbed character, like Elbeds are naturally
high speed faster in general, but brother is the most obvious choice.
Yeah, as long as you have an Elbed on your team, you can outrun. Is it 6 other teams you fight? No, 5 other teams. You can outrun 4 of them.
And the only team you can't, the Elbeds. Pretty much. Okay, so so we've got break the damage limit, which for the super bosses that we'll talk about when we get to the monster arena section, pretty much mandatory. Unless unless you want to be on YouTube doing a level 1 run for 2 hours of your life, and that's not fun for me.
I'm sorry, but people that play the game with 0 sphere grid, you crazy hazy people. I know there's a bunch of you crazy people out there. I can't do that. I don't think I could ever do it. That is, I'd say out of all of the Final Fantasy games so far, I'd say that 0 sphere grid has probably got to be one of the hardest challenges I have seen out of any of the Final Fantasy games. Just hearing about the challenges coming up to this point, 0 sphere grid.
You want to hear a fun one? In Final Fantasy 13, if you do 0 Crystarium,
is that even possible?
Yes, it is.
I've heard, it was about a year ago that I think I heard someone doing that, and I was like, why?
There's one point in the game where you need to farm for 6 hours straight because it's the only way to get enough gil to get the items to beat the game, and that's because they drop incentive chips that sell for 2,500 gil, and they're a really easy group of enemies, but it's fucking insane. I think that's the hardest one. By the way, Morag, looking at Twitter, you spell Twitch Twitch. And you have a comment from Siri that says, "Man, I love quick tick.
I didn't even read that comment. Damn it!
I did though, so you're welcome.
I did, I favorited it.
I saw what she said, but I didn't end up actually going and fully reading it.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
God damn it!
And then in Final Fantasy 15, we'll have we'll have level 1 runs like Kingdom Hearts because they said early on you can get a 0 EXP item in order to make sure that's possible. You
can do that in 12 as well.
Yes, you can. You can do that in pretty much any game, but it's a pain in the ass depending on which one.
Yeah.
Now, next up, we have the story of Final Fantasy X, and Final Fantasy X's story. It's the first one that's fully voice acted. Is the first thing to.
I wish this were vodka right now.
It's the first one that's fully voice acted. So there was some growing pains with the voice acting in Final Fantasy.
Is what I would call it.
Yeah, well, your ears grow, I think.
I see. I didn't have those issues. Instead,
didn't
all I
either.
hear was Bender the whole time.
Yeah, all I hear is Bender. It's like, hey, why is a robot throwing a ball at me?
Or Jake from Adventure Time. That's all
Yeah.
I could hear. Just Jake
Is that
and Bender.
Titus? Is Titus Jake?
No,
Who's
Waka.
Jake? Waka?
Waka.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jake is the same as Ben. Oh, that's right. Jake is the dog, right?
And
Okay.
he's then Gilgamesh in Final Fantasy 12.
That's John.
No, don't tell me that.
Right,
Now
yeah.
I hear Waka. It's Gilgamesh.
John DiMaggio. Good old John DiMaggio. He's great, but the thing is, you don't get to hear enough of him in 12.
No,
That's
you
the
really
problem.
don't.
Yeah, that's the only issue. But Final Fantasy, despite this, Final Fantasy X story is one of the reasons it's in my top 2 of all-time Final Fantasies.
Really?
Yes, it's a bit of a mindfuck, but compared to 8 and 9 prior, it's far more reasonable to believe this game's story versus believing a lot of the prior stuff. Like even 7, just the amount of mindfuckery involved. Yes,
Believable. You would use believable for this one.
I would use the word believable. Like it, you know what? Because it gives you a lot of mysteries that you don't have the answers to, and then it answers them. It doesn't throw like a curveball that was completely unexpected for 3 discs of the game. It's just like, yeah, there's got to be a reason why he's here and how he got here, and is it time travel? Does he? Then all of a sudden, all the pieces come together, and you're like, oh, okay.
I like how it all comes together. I don't know that I'd use the term believable.
Well, okay, what part about it's not believable?
He's a dream that's
Yeah.
moving around in the real world.
Yeah, like even going into 10 too, it's still.
Oh no. That.
All right. Here's the biggest plot hole for me of the 10th story. How did Jekt get there?
How?
Sin found him.
Why did they? Why
So,
did
okay,
freaking
I have a
kids
theory.
Go and make a dream for themselves to be happy.
I have a theory. All right, you ready for this? So
To remember better times.
when I was like 8 years old, I was a lucid dreamer, right? So the lucid dreamer is someone who's consciously thinking, who's able to consciously think while they're in the middle of a dream and like put deductive reason, like, oh, this is a dream, that's happening, this is happening, whatever. Can I do this? Can I do that? You have control of your dreams, in a sense. So I was just in a house that had no walls. I don't know why, but somehow the floors were still like it's multiple floors, and there's just some dude there, and I was just like, I don't know who this guy is, but I was realizing like this is a weird dream. I don't know if this is gonna be a good dream. I don't know if it's gonna be a bad dream. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start walking, and maybe I'll hit like the edge of my dream, like that SpongeBob episode, and then I'll wake up, and it worked. So maybe that's what he did. He just went out to sea and he hit the edge of the dream, and then he popped out of sin. It makes perfect sense.
Perfect sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you follow that, Morag? Oh
I spelled
man,
it correct this time, I think.
it's the sin
You
before
did.
the sin
You did,
before
you're fine.
Jekt clearly took him there. Why we will never know. Pretty much, that's the only logical thing that you could actually come up with is that sin in the dream world brought Jekt to the real world for whatever reason. Maybe he shared a similar thought to what Jekt shared for Titus, where he wanted him to kill him and stop the cycle. Who knows? There you go. No idea.
On that subject, I would love a before years for Final Fantasy X.
I'd rather see a prequel than a sequel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone wants the Jekt Orin.
Because the story that they build up. All right. I don't like the story of Final Fantasy X, and that's because it's not the story of the world and all this stuff. It's their love story. It's Tidus and Yuna's love story is the basis for it. Meanwhile, those two characters suck, and the whole world around them is actually really interesting. The lore of the world is really interesting. What has happened with Sin, how he came to be, the development of the religion, and all of this stuff is really interesting stuff. And they're just like, oh, yeah, you Yevon's a bad guy. Tidus and Yuna are in love, though. Look at them. And I'm like, no, you tell me about him. Get those two. Get them off my screen.
Yeah.
That's still,
And
that
that's
doesn't
what-
mean it's not believable though.
Not on the subject of believability right now. Damn it, you got me sidetracked. That's part of why I want to go back, especially because what we see from the Jekt spheres is really cool character stuff between Jekt, Orin, and Braska. I think seeing their journey and the development, as especially of Jekt as they go along, could be really cool.
Would you like a spoiler about how that game ends? Orin dies and tells Kamari to bring Yuna to Besaid, and then you know how the game starts it starts with Tidus going to the Blitzball with right before the big Blitzball match in Final Fantasy X.
I'd be down for that.
I'm letting you know what
fine.
the end of the story is. So spoilers.
Yeah.
Sorry
Sounds
for
like a
anyone.
great
Same
end.
thing with what happens with Crisis Core.
Yep, pretty much. Although they had to shoehorn in an entire bonus character into the whole game just to make a Japanese pop star happy.
I don't know. I think like one of the biggest issues with telling the 10 story is that there wasn't enough emphasis that on, you know, Titus's Zanarkand wasn't real. It flat out was a figment of it was what he thought was real, and that life is not actually what everyone else sees. No one ever saw it except for him and Jack. No one else. It is that you as a person, as the player of the game, played it, but there was no real detachment from it. You wanted that to be real. You didn't want this other world that you're transported into to be the real world. You always saw that as the imaginary world, or you just time traveled forward. And that Zanarkand that blew up was your Zanarkand. There wasn't that enough of like telling you, no, dummy, it is not real. Let go of it.
I like the idea of the dream in general, but they don't handle it very well from Tidus's perspective. There's not enough impact for him. There's not enough.
That's all I was gonna say. He
Weight
comes
to
to
it.
accept it far too easily.
Very quickly. And then at the end of the game, when he's about to die, he's just like, by the way, everybody, this is our last fight. Goodbye.
But this is
Well,
my
kill him!
story.
No. Tidus' Zanarkand was real? Yeah, for him and no one else.
And
So
it
that's
was
the
1,000
thing.
years
It was
ago.
a dream.
It's
It was
a
someone's
memory.
thought.
It's a memory of 1,000 years ago.
It's like saying that an AI makes their own world and that's a real world. Yeah, maybe to them, but what's the world that made that world?
I mean, it'd be nice to just start the prequel with how Jekt got to Spira, like the legitimate event that caused him to make it to Spira.
Go further back. Go further back than that. Find out, find out why.
So I can just hear him do this all the time and talk to his son.
I'd actually want to go further back, see how the religion came to be, find out why people can walk around when they're dead, find out why, what is it? Daddy Summoner, I forget his name right now.
Yuya.
Yeah, no, not Yuya.
Oh, Braska.
Braska, yeah, Braska is like a fallen summoner, and what he did to deserve what he got and whatnot.
Yeah, they mention that, and I don't know if it's ever built up in like a very small side story in the game. I don't think that it is, but they talk about how they're all a bunch of losers, basically.
Actually, seeing the war, here, Durson says it right there. Seeing the war between Bavel and Zanarkand. Seeing the war between, all of Yevon and
to
the
do like a prequel way before that one even, I think would also be cool.
Have that as like the
I
story of the game.
really love the lore of this game.
Yeah. He's fallen because he married Elbed.
Oh right, yeah, which is why Yuna, and Yuna's half Elbed. It's just not something they're ever making a very big deal about. It's just like, oh yeah.
I like when Waka realized, she's half Albed. Don't. I just love we have racist Waka the whole game. Like, racist.
Fucking hate Waka so much, you have no idea.
Fucking racist
Everything
Waka.
about that character makes him a piece of shit. He's a jockish, bullying, racist douchebag. Oh.
So he's from New Jersey.
Hey, at least he was nice in the fact that he let Titus know when he might have been rubbing people's shoulders the wrong way and be like, hey, be careful. He at least gave the heads up to people.
Where was he born? He was born in... Look, John DiMaggio was born in North Plainfield, New Jersey. So it makes perfect sense. With a name like John DiMaggio, I honestly expected him to be from New Jersey.
Had to be either New Jersey or
And
New
he went to
York.
Rutgers. So...
Man, a prequel story with the whole war starting. That would be awesome. You started off as you are a summoner, fighting, just
Stay
like...
away from the
and
summoner.
see the war.
Stay away from the summoner.
Oh man, that would be so cool. And then you go and deject like him living and getting married to Elbed. Oh, that'd be so. Square, do it.
My favorite thing about Waka is just when he kicks the Machina, and he's just like, he just doesn't expect it to hurt. He just fucking kicks it. Oh man,
Karma.
Waka's from New Jersey. Life explained.
Where were we with the story? We got sidetracked with the prequel.
No, well, no, we're still talking about the story. Technically,
yeah,
all
I
of that is, we're technically talking about a part of the story that is, it's in this game. I wouldn't say it's just more of a wish list.
I'm pretty sure there's nothing else to talk about after the game.
Now, the only thing I will say regarding the story is, as much as I love Final Fantasy X story, the part where all of a sudden Yu Yevon comes into play is just like,
it didn't happen naturally at all.
You know,
all right, my favorite part is when that's happening. You go and you talk to the head prime minister, Micah, whatever his name is, and he's just like, "You killed the final. We can't do the final summoning. Fuck this shit. I'm out of there." And then he turns into fireflies and goes away forever.
And then Yuli's like, "Yeah, he's not here yet. We've been waiting."
I know it. I wish that Unalesca actually would have gave more information about what was actually happening with the war and whatnot. It gave even more information, and just because like the whole lead up to finding out that, like, you know, everyone's pretty much dead, part of the religion. You don't even get hints about it leading up. It's just
it's just dropped on you.
It's you getting to. Getting all the way up into Xanarkand, and then you get to like the beginning of the game, and you're just like, "Oh, I'm here now," and then they just shit all over you with story for the last like 6 hours of the game, and then you're just expected to take it.
And then you have little Seymour. I don't want you to be coming in a fade.
I don't know. I could see what they wanted to do, but they needed more. The build up to getting to Xanarkand, I think, might have been too long. And then not enough for actual ending the story.
And by the way, speaking of the word story, I don't ever want to hear "this is my story" ever again in my life. But
it's his story.
But here's the thing. It goes the whole time talking about how it's his story. Then finally, Yuna's like, "But it's our story too." And then in the very last scene, he's like, "I know it's selfish, but this is my story." It's like, didn't we just have this discussion? Idiot.
Tidus is a moron all the time. I mean, yeah, I agree. It goes back to the fact that the story of the game tries to focus on Tidus and Yuna's love story too much. It doesn't do enough with like building up the fact that all of these people are dead and they're just saying "fuck it" to death, and I'm gonna stay alive forever and do whatever I want.
But get it? It's called Spira because it's a spiral of death.
Of death, yeah.
Yeah.
Someone in my chat, actually, when I mentioned that, they were like, "I have never gotten that before."
PogChamp. There you go. It's got to be done. What?
That is a dumb thing. Like, what? It's Spira. It's a spiral of death. No.
That's what it is. I mean, that's
Square's naming convention.
That was Square's name.
But is that an actual legit?
Yes.
Or is it?
They say spiral of death in the game. Seymour does right before the Seymour
Spira, the spiral of death.
No, he doesn't say Spira, the spiral of death. He says this land is a spiral of death or something like that.
Spira.
And then the sentence before that, he mentions that it's Spira or something.
Yeah. Within 2 sentences, he combines the ideas right there.
I think this is just him going off the rail like he did half the game.
Oh man. So now that we've done this, we've gone through the story, and as much as I do have to ask you, Suteki Dini. Yay or nay? Okay, I didn't ask you to sing it.
All right, fine.
I asked you if you felt that scene. So when I watch that scene, I go between like, hey, this is really sad, and oh my god, I'm live streaming this scene, and everyone's just gonna talk about how they're having sex, and that Kamari watched the whole time.
Well, Kamari is a sick pervert.
Kamari's just like, this just got a whole lot better. Those 10 years away from Mount Gagazet are worth it now.
Kamari, the entire game, was a watcher.
Yeah, because he was never in my party.
I actually used him in my party because I gave him the null blaze, the null spells, so he was useful.
He was useful in mine too. He was one of the fastest characters.
Save some for Kimari.
He was a healer in my party.
He's a really good healer because of Lancet. He's like, oh, I'm out of MP and now I got more stuff.
It's him and Riku just spamming the shit out of Albed
Fucking heard that, Morag. Don't think I didn't hear that.
I've been fluent the whole day.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay. All right. That was a fun scene. I like that scene.
That scene, Tidus's face has never looked worse than it does in that scene.
His eyes are wet.
All the pre-rendered scenes look really weird for some of the character models.
Well, because they look a lot more Japanese, kind of, in the rendered scenes. Like their facial features are completely different from their pre-rendered versions.
And that they had a shitload of baby oil all over them, and
they're like, oh, you know what makes characters look more
like,
realistic? Sweat and reflections.
Botox and like the whole chin lift and just like semi-perfect.
His face is like 90% teeth.
Have you ever seen Will Smith? The meme where his
Yes,
eyes are really
yes.
small and his mouth
Really
is really small? Yeah. That's what Tidus turns into in those scenes. He turns into Will Smith. There's also a filter for that on Snapchat.
Oh, of course there is.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about Seymour in this story?
I liked him.
The real, like, final villain, like the actual villain.
He was
because
the
Yeah.
villain.
He starts out so great. And then by the time you run into him in Sin, it's like, oh, it feels like they were like, oh, shit, we're finishing up the game. We still haven't dealt with Seymour. Throw him in there as a boss fight.
I love that they keep beating him and they're just not like, oh yeah, he's dead. And then it's like, well, I know I'm not, but
Send him, maybe?
like, yeah, never come back. Let's leave now before we send him. That's because there's no body.
Stay down.
Regardless even of like the sending purpose, like I can understand like that is like the real, hey, yeah, we killed him type of thing, but it still feels like you beat him every time. But yeah, I know he keeps going back. Kind of sucks, but you never really expect him to keep going back.
Yeah.
The whole party is just like, oh my god, he's back, which is cool. And like you playing the game, like first time I played the game, I was like, holy shit!
The thing about
Every
Seymour,
single time.
the thing about Seymour is when you start the game, he's almost like a voice of reason. As much as you can already tell he's the bad guy, he's the guy who's a high up in the religion who doesn't follow it to the T, and for logical reasons that even Tidus at one point says, you know what, I kind of agree with him, even though it's just in his head. And it's like, yeah, he's like, oh, they're using these forbidden machina, but they still want the same thing.
Actually, you know what's funny is like the first time I played the game as a kid, I didn't really understand why Waka and the whole party got like upset, or like they kind of did the like when they're doing
When he
the,
says, just
the
pretend you
operational
didn't
speech.
hear it.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, you didn't hear it. I didn't understand that as a kid. When I played it, like a couple years ago, and for the first time, I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
whoa, oh, and then even again, like playing it here, I was just like, yeah, he just did that. Like high-ranking official, like flat out type of corruption, but it's doing it for the better of the people.
And then Keenock is like, you know, this isn't gonna work. They're all dead. And they're just like, what? What do you mean? Yeah, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
It
It's just interesting though, like seeing that perception of like that type of power and the type of responsibility that those people end up having, but seeing how they use it for different reasons. I always found that interesting.
Yeah, and then Seymour dies, and then the rest of Sin is like, oh, Dad, I hate you.
Everyone has their parent issues in this game.
That's
I
do
think
we wanna
parental,
start talking
I think
about the voice
parental
acting?
problems. So yeah, when it comes to the voice acting, man, there are parts where it's completely fine. Like it's like, okay, yeah, that's
Sort
what and then there's parts where you're like, did somebody direct them to say it that way?
There's oh man, especially Yuna. I think Yuna's the worst about it, but everybody has a small problem. And I think what happened is that this was one of the first very big, very voice acted games. And I think what happened is that in the translation from Japanese, the text was translated, but the lips were not changed at all. The animation stayed the exact same. So the voice actors were likely directed to deliver their lines so that the lines matched up with the lips in the scene as close as they could get, which creates some extremely stilted dialogue.
If you're talking, the scene that comes to mind is immediately the first scene you meet Yuna, where she says, "I am a summoner." Like she's like, "I have done it. I am a summoner."
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, there's a
And then,
handful
I
of
mean,
things.
she's like, if she delivered that line with some weight, like she had it, if there was a sound in her voice, Yuna's voice actor was really bad about this. If there was just some heart in her voice ever, aside from when she gets a little bit mad and then talks like this, then that would be okay, because I mean, she comes out of there and then she passes out. But that happens with her throughout the entire game. Her dialogue is always very talking like this.
Well, there was one scene like where her emotions kind of matched how she was feeling like the entire game. Like she was the person that like that people were kind of relying on, but at the same time she was trying to stay strong, but also at the same time she was scared shitless about what she was trying to do, but she had to be that voice of reason no matter what. Like when she talks to Seymour, and Seymour is like, you have to do this, and people are relying on you. Like you kind of just see it, and then you kind of, I don't know, it kind of always fell back to like the way that she was speaking, the way that she knew she had to be. It kind of made a little bit more sense. Like at the beginning, yeah, no, it was complete shit until actually seeing that she wasn't ready. She herself, she wasn't mentally ready for what she was trying to do, but she forced herself to do it the entire game. This is the way I saw it.
Which they could have done more with.
True. They could have done a lot more.
Yeah. If that's the direction, like, they should have done more with that with her character. Instead of, she's a summoner and she's the girl next door and Tidus loves her. Ta-da. I think one of the reasons I like Orin as a character the best in the game, probably, is because since he's got the jacket over his lips, most of his lines don't have to be delivered like he's talking just to match his words with his character's lips. So that he can actually talk like a human being. He can tell you a sentence and have it sound like he's actually talking, instead of reading literally from a script that's right in front of him for the first time. Overall, the voice acting really takes me out of this game. And I've actually been noticing the same in Final Fantasy XII, but for different reasons. We'll talk about that later.
I'm kind of, because I actually kind of like the voice acting.
I do and I don't in 12, but we'll get to
12,
that.
it felt like there was a lot greater direction.
Yes, the voice acting is a million times better, but it's still, for an immersion thing for me, it ruins it a bit.
All right. So one final story element before we move on to talking about progress and more about the sphere grid and the monster arena and all that stuff. Tidus' name. This is the last Final Fantasy where you're allowed to rename the main character, and as a result, forever, he's never referred to by his fucking name until, like, Dissidia and Kingdom Hearts.
I've heard an interesting thing about that, actually. Someone linked it up in my Discord the other day. What other characters do you get to rename in Final Fantasy X?
None. Oh, I'm sorry, Summons and...
Summons.
Summons,
yeah. And what do Tidus and the Summons have in common?
The Dream of the Faith.
Their dreams, yeah.
They're part of the faith.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that was intentional, but if it was, it's a really, really nice touch.
That also has, for 10 years, well, even after Kingdom Hearts 1 came out, caused the debate of Tidus or Tidus. And it means that every time they had to write the whole story never using his name, and basically always say, him, them, him. And even then in the sequel, and then even in the sequel where you don't even have the choice to rename him, they could have just started calling him Tidus. They're still like, it makes me think of him. And it's like, just fucking say his name!
It bothers me so much. The worst part of that is the sphere that Yuna's recording when they're at right before Mushroom Rock, whatever that area is called. Mihen High Road. That's the one.
Yeah.
So later in the game, you find a recording that she had made right outside that spot, and she talks about him so much and how he's so dreamy and him, never once referring to him by name after talking about all of the other characters and the great things that she loves about them and referring to them by name. Then it gets to him, and she won't mention this guy that she's so madly, teenagerly in love with. It's like, please stop. Please stop this now.
All right, sorry, I was distracted by something. Okay, so story-wise, we have that. Now we get to talk about Final Fantasy X's progression through the game. 99. Now this is I think the first Final Fantasy that abandons a traditional leveling system in favor of a much longer sphere grid system. Now,
I liked it.
You liked it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it because like you said, it's starting to abandon what EXP kind of ended up meaning. Like EXP, yeah, was like, you had your extra sphere level that you could go and progress, but at the same time, you got to choose, kind of, pseudo. It's, again, the illusion of choice that allowed you to go and, say, have more progression in how your character was building. You know what stats your character was getting, so you knew how you were growing as a player for each of these characters as well, too. Kind of the same thing with Final Fantasy V or 3. When you are progressing your character, you got to choose what that stat was. With FF6, equipping a certain summon. You got to choose what that stat was. Now, understandable, we already understood that that this was a homogenization of characters too at the same time, but through the main game itself, you get to choose the progression of your character. You get to choose what it's going to end up doing. But again, illusion of choice. It really wasn't.
In the original release, yeah, it was a complete illusion of choice.
Yeah, but they leave open those empty sphere grids that you can go and put extra things in. But
you don't get a lot of those until the end of the game.
Yeah, that was the only downfalls. You don't get a ton of them.
And then it just kind of goes back. Like, for example, you've got a strength sphere. If you're not going to be like, oh, I would like Lulu to be able to do a little bit more melee damage for the times that she doesn't need to cast a spell. If you're going to give her one strength sphere, it's not going to make enough of a difference to go through the effort of that. It's just a total waste.
Well, with one strength sphere, maybe.
But with about 30 or 40...
all of a sudden, Yuna's meleeing for 99,999, and I don't use her magic anymore, which is exactly what I've done every playthrough.
Yep.
So
I mean, that's what it boils down to.
So that's one of the big things about the sphere grid. Despite the fact that you gain experience, you get a sphere level, you move throughout the grid, you also have the option of deleting and adding spheres, assuming you have the appropriate items, to further tailor what you need to gain stats in. And what that leads to, especially with the expert grid, is the, again, ability to completely break your characters in every stat imaginable with enough patience. Because nobody said this was a quick process.
It didn't take too long. Well, all right, I haven't maxed out every stat, but I've maxed out enough of them. After about 10 to 15 hours on fast forward of just farming up sphere levels, farming up the right spheres that I needed to put into the slots, I've gotten 255 strength, defense, magic defense, 170 agility, which is all you need with auto haste, and then 120 luck. And that's the stats that you need to take on.
Yeah, about that luck stat.
I haven't looked in any of the...
Morag, you don't want to know. You really don't want to know about the luck stat.
What's it control?
So, your luck versus the enemy luck determines accuracy, evasion, and critical hit chance. It will compare your luck to the opponent luck. If your luck is higher than theirs, then accuracy and evasion come into play. If it is lower, then they are weighted much less severely.
Well, this makes sense then why they barely give you anything to do with luck throughout the game then, because they're so few and far between. That could break the game. That's literally a heads or tails at balance then. But I don't know what it means for endgame, though.
What it means for endgame is a lot of enemies possess anywhere from 70 to 120 luck. Thus, you need luck, or you will either A, get one shot because you can't dodge their attacks, because even though your evasion's 255, your luck is 40, they'll hit you every time. Or, even with 255 accuracy, you can't land any hits on them.
Yep.
So it's a two-way street.
I was trying to figure out how they were balancing that, but that makes a lot more sense because there needed to be something. Because like even if you were to try and max stuff out on the grid, something still felt missing, or where because there's no gear. Because with most RPGs and MMOs, there's usually a gear check to a lot of stuff. Even Seymour, like the second Seymour Flux is like the second Seymour, I think, is even kind of a gear check too, just to find out, do you have the right amount of stats? When I started seeing something like the arena stuff, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, yep. I feel like there's something that I'm missing with how I'm supposed to be fighting these. Even the Dark Aeons running into them. Like, how am I supposed to dodge some of these attacks? How am I supposed to reduce damage to this?
Running into Dark Ixion and then getting your whole team Thundara'd for 90,000 damage before you even get to act. It's like, oh, wake up call. Thanks.
Yeah. It does make sense though. Like is there anything that teaches you what luck does in the game, or do you have to look it up? I
don't think it's explained to that degree. I think they give you kind of luck in most RPGs. Kind of you always get the ambiguous. It's either critical hit chance or it's very ambiguous what it does. I believe it's very ambiguous here.
That sucks. I was hoping that maybe the Monster Arena would have told you about it before, like as you get more stuff in there.
So the worst thing about luck is not just the way it's compared, it's the way it's earned. That's what makes luck one of the most annoying stats to deal with.
You have to farm 2 very annoying fights to get that.
I haven't started looking into like how to get luck spheres yet.
So there's two bosses you need to beat. Greater Sphere, which is one of the original boss creations in the arena. He's got about 1.5 million health, and he has a chance to hydraulic press on counter, which is 99% of your max HP on hit, I believe.
Not that much. No, I think it's 50%.
It's 50% with protect.
Okay. No. Well, did they all have protect? I may have had protect on everybody by then. You might be right.
Yeah, because it's pretty much if you get two of those in a row, it's always max percentage damage. You will die if it hits you twice in a row. Without protect, with protect, you can even still survive it. I think it's even lower than 50% with protect on. Well, yeah, because like 98% cut in half is 49%, so you would still be stuck with a couple percent left. Yeah. So that's the first boss. That's to get luck spheres to fill in the empty spaces on the grid. The problem is you need fortune spheres in order to use them, and the only way to get fortune spheres is to beat Earth Eater, who has a massive amount of resistances, counters every fucking attack you use, and just takes a great deal longer to beat than the Greater Sphere does. And then the final worst part is because you only get 2 fortune spheres for beating Earth Eater, and you get, one sphere is 1 use of luck on the grid itself, you need to farm him 3 times as much as you did Greater Sphere to get that amount of luck for every character.
But there's
no, there's no other way to do it.
No, I mean like there's a rotation to always make sure like it's like.
I mean, for me, what I did is I've maxed out my strength first so that I could put it on fast forward auto fight for both of those. It's the best way to do it. You'll hit for 99,000 each time. You'll kill them pretty quickly. It doesn't take too long, but it's a lot of boring, annoying work.
And on top of
AKA
that,
the monster arena in a nutshell.
Yeah, and on top of that, oh shit, I was gonna say something, I forgot where I was going with it. Because of you, Slack.
After the getting the spheres and then the fortune stuff afterwards too.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that you need to do that 3 times as much because every character needs to use a fortune sphere. Like 1 fortune sphere is good for 1 luck on each character. So it just takes a really long. And keep in mind, you have to do this for your strength. You have to do this for your evasion, for your accuracy, for if you really want to, your HP. If you're not going with the strategy that is under 10,000 HP cap.
The thing with strength spheres is, and Morag, you're going to be kind of sad that you haven't done this sooner. You haven't done any strength farming, have you? Okay.
I didn't want to get like super duper crazy overpowered yet because I haven't beat the game yet.
Yeah. What I did was that I started farming up the strength spheres, put them in my board, used up all of the strength spheres that I had to grab those nodes. So I grabbed strength nodes. I farmed up those, and then I used all my 99 strength spheres I had stocked up to level up my strength on my 3 characters. And then I went out and did a bunch of monster farming, did a bunch of monster hunting to catch a ton of them, get closer to the max on everybody, and then I'd have 99 strength spheres again. And so I'd go back, level up off of Don Tonberry, get more strength nodes, drop those down, use up all my strength spheres again. And I did this over and over and over, and that's how I ended up catching most of the monsters that I've gotten so far. It's a much more efficient way of doing it, and I'm very happy I did it that way. Thankfully, that's the good thing about this stat and the magic defense and the fence stats is that you'll have 99 of these nodes most of the time. They're very easy to farm those up compared to how much of a terrible, boring grind it is to get the fortune spheres.
Now, the other thing I remembered about the fortune spheres, by the way, is that sometimes you don't get fortune or luck spheres from these enemies.
You'll
get dark
matters.
Ew.
Yeah.
Which are good because you can put ribbon on items with dark matters, but you need 99 dark matters to do that. So, considering you only get 2 on an overkill, good luck.
Good luck.
Good fucking luck. So, yeah, it's just... And this is the only way you're going to be able to take down the Aeons on top of needing the right armor sets to negate their effects. And it turns what starts off as a really cool concept and eventually turns into... And Final Fantasy 12 is guilty of this too, is way too much.
Yeah.
Just way too much, as my chat is calling it, busy work.
Yeah.
And then Penance...
Totally agree.
Yeah, this is like the one game that I said I might end up trying to 100%, so... But it might be something I'll be doing later.
Yeah, so the biggest thing about 100%ing this game is Penance is probably the most boring super boss of any Final Fantasy game other than Yasmat.
I've never fought them. I haven't ever done any of the international content for this. So I'm actually looking forward to
Penance is literally just 20 to 30 minutes of quick hitting and then surviving an attack. Because if there's ever a point where both his arms are up and he gets to do a special attack, you're instantly going to lose the fight. So it's literally just
nice.
you need to know like 6 quick hits, then this will happen, then 6 quick hits, then this will happen. And if at any point you don't follow the plan, you're out 30 minutes of your time.
That's one of the dumbest fights
It's
I've ever
really not an interesting fight in any way. It's really cool, and when you're trying to figure out, it's really cool. But the execution on Penance is 10 million HP that you have to deal with. And on top of that, each of his arms that constantly respawn, having a few 100,000 themselves, is not all that interesting. Or you could just spam attack wheels. That's the other thing you could do. Just spam attack wheels, pretty much.
That's
or
what I'm
Zanmato.
planning on
Oh, so
doing.
in the Steam version, Zanmato has a lowered chance of happening against Penance also.
Yeah. Lowered. Not null, but lowered.
It's like almost impossible to Zanmato him.
I
in
didn't
the
think it
Steam
was
version.
that bad.
It's pretty bad. You need to do a lot of Zanmato raising if you want to reasonably do it. However, on every other piece of content, the Zanmato is way more common. I got it using just 10 gil maybe 5 times in 10 minutes. I was like, 10 gil. He's like, Zanmato. I was like, what? What?
I watched Morag. Who did you get Zanmato against? Was it Omega or Ultima Weapon?
Whatever the first one was.
Ultimate-
I
Ultimate
didn't.
Weapon, yeah.
I was just testing anyway. I
Yeah.
didn't. I alt forward through that site
Yeah, I saw that.
because I didn't want to do what I did against Don Tomberry. I just wasted every item in the book trying to kill
Yeah,
him.
that
So
was
speaking
interesting.
about
You were
Don
like,
Tonberry,
everybody was like, Don Tonberry is great. You'll love that fight later on. And you were like, all right, well, let's go kill him and see what happens. And it's like, no, that's not the point. You're not supposed to kill him.
Well, I killed him though.
Yeah, you did, but
It cost me a lot of level 4 spheres.
oh yeah. Now talking about some of the optional stuff, I was just about to go someplace again and I completely lost it. My chat will probably fill in my brain at some point when it comes to that. Fuck, man, where was I going with that? It wasn't the Monster Arena, it wasn't the Dark Aeons,
Ultima, Omega Weapon.
Ultima, Omega.
Ruins.
Man, fuck the Omega Ruins, but that's a totally different topic.
You know
That's a
what I
different
would
thing,
like
yeah.
to talk about? That my gripe for this game when I first played it, when it was out on the PS2, long ago. It was a hallway.
It
Yep.
is.
Yes, we didn't get around to that. Thank
Probably
you.
one of the most overlooked complaints about 10 is the fact that it is a very linear game.
I hated it when I first started playing because it was a hallway. I'm like, where's my cities? This city shit. I can't go back into it. It's locked me out. I can't go back. Why can't I go see this? When's my world map? I see a world map. Why can't I navigate it? Where am I going? Where's my random encounters? Oh, it's random encounters just randomly walking around. No, give me a world map. I want to walk around there. And then I hated it. I hated FF10 the first time. I still kept playing because I was enjoying it. But
It always pisses me off that people give
I see your
13
smile,
so much-
Morag. It's not funny.
It always pisses me off that people give 13 so much shit for being a hallway sim, but they don't say the same about 10. Everybody's like, oh, I love 10 so much.
Yeah.
And then people are like, 13, hallway simulator. And it's like, they both have
So,
this problem.
okay, I think I think I know why that problem exists. And we'll talk about it now because even though it's more about 13 and we'll touch on it then, I'm on 13 right now for count up. And I'm on Grand Pulse, which is where the game turns into a massive world, basically. when you get to
Calmlands.
Grand Pulse. Yeah, it basically becomes the Calmlands, which is
Yeah.
when 10 opens up too. The
I thought
biggest-
that was funny too.
There's two things that make
parallel.
I think there's two very important things that make 13 feel more like a hallway than 10. For one, random encounters in 10 aren't on the map, or you don't see the enemy and get the preemptive strike. In 13, seeing the enemy and knowing whether or not they've respawned and knowing how far I'm gonna have to run to come back to get that enemy to respawn, makes the hallway so much less enjoyable. Just yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is the Crystarium in no way gives you any sort of customization until almost the end of the game. And that in itself is also a hallway, whereas the Sphere Grid, yes, the standard Sphere Grid technically does, but the way that stats scale in 10 is far more satisfying than the way the Crystarium stats scale in 13, which basically until you start getting like plus 50 strength from the stage 10 ones after you beat the game, you barely notice a difference without maybe 20, 30 Crystarium levels.
Well, at least in 13, like, I didn't start noticing doing more damage until I actually upgraded my weapons.
Yeah, and that's the
Yeah,
other,
weapons are a very big part in that game. Whereas in this game, they're a very small part.
Now, to be fair, I feel like both 10 and 13 have their ups and downs in different aspects. Like, the ability to customize the weapon and armor in 10 is nice, but is almost useless until you decide to go into the very end game stuff. And even then, it's very much if you don't use these things, you're probably dead.
I'd say that the other big difference between the two is that 10 does less hallway stuff where you get to walk around a town, you get to talk to people.
Yeah.
In 13, it takes you a few hours to ever like get a real break from doing just walk forward, get in these fights, move on to the next character's chapter. It's like when you get to Saz and Vanille hanging out.
That's
at
chapter
the
8, by the way.
Okay.
That's my least favorite chapter.
I remember not liking that one either very much. It's
so boring.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got Frokobo. Shout out to Bailey.
And then, so like in 10, you get these breakups where you're in a city, and the fact that you're one unit, I think works a lot better than what 13 does with the split stories.
Yeah.
I don't know that they ever do split stories well in a Final Fantasy game.
No, because there's always a party member you're more attached to, and when you lose them, you're never satisfied with losing them. It's very rarely like they fail to execute it in terms of the story. They usually make it make sense story-wise. Like, well, this event happened, so of course.
Yeah. Like story-wise, I get it, but it doesn't. It's not.
It doesn't make it more satisfying to know that this is a forced situation where maybe this character I don't like using is here, or maybe the character I liked using is gone, even though I don't mind these other characters. Another big difference in the linearity of the game is 10 does its best to distract you with minigames. Now, we shit on Blitzball a little bit, we shit on the Monster Arena for its grindiness, but they're there, and 13 does nothing of the sort to try and draw your attention away from the fact you're running from objective A to B to C to
I
D.
was going to mention something similar. I was going to mention the temples. I like the temples, the puzzles there, and they're a nice break from the usual run forward through this off the Mihen High Road on the only route that you can go.
So, I mean, obviously, like, this is almost becoming a 13 count-up only because this is the biggest problem. I've always had that problem of calling 13 linear because 10 is, but it's the way they're presented that I feel is the distinct difference between 10's linearity and 13's linearity.
It's kind of interesting because seeing what they've done with 10 and what they've done with 13 and what they're going to do with 15.
With 15, yeah.
Seeing some of it's 15's almost a complete, from what I can tell, backwards approach to how they tell a story. Especially my biggest gripe, one of my biggest issues I had with 13 when I first started playing is I had no idea what was going on in the world. It wasn't until I played it a second time that I actually understood the beginning of the game.
And that's fair. That's commonly criticized about Fabula Nova Crystallis in general, where they have these concepts they want you to understand, but unless you go out of your way to research said concept, you're just thrown a bunch of words and you kind of have to accept that's the way it is.
Let's see. What the hell? What? Let's see. Crystals.
And Type 0 is guilty of it too. Type 0 has Falsey and Lassie and all that shit too.
But what this is where I think they fixed it with 15 coming up, is they gave us Kingsglaive.
They gave us Brotherhood, which has now had all 5 episodes aired.
I highly recommend watch 15 or Kingsglaive. It is so good, and it explains so much.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and definitely don't be upset if you missed it in theaters. I've seen it in theaters and at home. I feel like it was way better to watch at home than it is. But what is interesting, since we're still talking about 10's linearity. It's been commented on, my chat brought it up just now, so I'm bringing it up. It's been said by Tabata that the second half of 15 is far more directed on the story, but that the term
does worry me some.
But the thing is, he's clarified that the term linear, being the final chapters are more linear, doesn't mean that the world is shut off. It just means by that point you've gone through the majority of zones, and that the final direction of your story is it needs to be able to tell you the final pieces of the story in sequence, or they lose their scope, basically. Is the best way to put it.
Good. That does a lot to assuage my problems from when I heard that.
Because that's the thing, when you have something that's open world and you have something that's linear. Like, think about when I think of even going back to Final Fantasy VII. Yes, technically, all the early Final Fantasy games, while they have a world map, they're not open world. You're still hey, these are the places you're allowed to go. Then you move on to the next part. These are the places you're allowed to go.
There's still a line with little offshoots.
There's a line, but you can see the options.
Right.
If there was something else there. Sort of like a Metroidvania type game, where it's hey, there's a wall that I can jump up here later on, or that I can climb it, or I can do some way to get up there. But for now, I just have to keep going. And in a lot of earlier Final Fantasies, it was hey, there's an island over there. I can't put my ship there. There's no dock to land there with. So I have to wait until I get an airship, and then I can take my ship there. And then once you get the airship,
there's a degree of anticipation with the world map.
Yeah, that's that's one of my biggest things. Why I love Metroidvania games, because it's called. I think I've been told it's called Lock and Key. for like
Yes.
a game design
Yes.
point of view.
Yeah.
You can see it, you can't touch it,
Yeah.
but you know it's there. It's going to always be in your mind, and it's in the anticipation as you guys are seeing.
Yeah.
And 13 barely has any of that, except for you can see some of the Crystarium down below, and you can't. touch it.
Yeah. You're like, oh, look, I can keep leveling up.
And that's another thing in 10. There's never a point where they say, by the way, you're done leveling for now. In 13, they're like, by the way, you're done for now.
I will say that is like one of the coolest things about 10 is you always keep leveling, and you can always keep adjusting your grid as much as you want. And I think that's one of the coolest things about 10. That is what kept me going, at least through the game, is I just wanted to keep seeing how much more powerful I'll end up getting. At least like with other games, you know that your level cap is going to be 99, and if you hit it, then your characters are done. There's nothing else you can do.
Yeah. But the big thing between even those world map games and current games, if you take enough time just ignoring the story and just grinding or doing side quests, eventually by the time you get back to the story, it does lose some of its weight because all Final Fantasy games sort of promote urgency, like we need to do this now, but then they give you the option to kind of do something in between. And
I feel like Final Fantasy 12 is the worst about this.
yes, 12 is absolutely the worst about giving you an urgency of the story, especially once you've I think it's once you've gone to the Golmore Jungle. At that point, you can go to almost any place in the world if you're brave enough.
Yeah.
And you can
right.
completely break the game by doing that.
That was one of the things that made me stop playing 12,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, the first time. Because I got to the jungle, I'm like, I can go anywhere, and then I wanted to explore everywhere.
Yeah.
And,
And then you died, go
then-
everywhere you went.
And then I ended up stopping playing the game when you go and fight Sid for like one of the first times.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, oh, I don't know. I'm really looking forward to freaking playing it, man. Oh,
With 10, I feel like they do the urgency well for the most part. And then you blow Sin out of the sky and he lands. And then I feel like you can just kind of go, he's not flying around anymore. What destruction's he going to do? Let's go kill monsters.
Yeah, just fucking leave. But that's the thing. So looking at 10 and 13, comparing them in their linearity aspect, and the reason why 15 second half is more linear is to tell a more cohesive story. Do we feel that Final Fantasy X ever suffered from a lack of cohesion in its story from the way that you progressed through the game, or was there never enough break between the cutscenes and the amount of time you could spend grinding?
I know that I'd already said it earlier, but it was like, for me at least, it was up to getting to Zanarkand. That was a whole big story, but they didn't really push, what Zanarkand, like, what Titus's Zanarkand actually was, and that it was a whole fake place that someone else came up with, and that he is a fake person as well, too, in a whole other world that somehow is transported to the actual real world versus his. Like, that I don't think was stressed enough, and the fact that we basically are shoved information about the religion and everything near the end of the game, and we know nothing about it. That gives no really big backstory. It just leaves open, you have to deal with this, and you can't really get attached to it. It's still about Titus and Yuna loving each other. But it is a love story. Even 10-2 is a love story, and you just don't. I don't care about the love story. Tell me actual stuff about this world that I'm in. That is the real world. And
Well,
that's all I hate.
I would agree. I don't think that there's a problem with cohesion necessarily. It's just the story that they tell isn't the interesting one going on in the game for me. As far as pacing goes, they do the pacing very, very, very well in
Pacing
10.
as well.
Between story moment, gameplay moment, story moment, gameplay moment, story moment, gameplay moment. Even if it's just for a few minutes, just a few battles, they will have a cutscene, and then you'll do a few battles. You'll run forward, fight some machines. They'll do another cutscene. You'll fight a few more machines, and then another cutscene. As opposed to like an hour of just sitting around where you get into 6 fights the entire time and keep going through dialogue, Final Fantasy IX.
So, we've gotten to talk a little bit about progressing through the story, the hallway system that it has, the sphere grid. We've gotten to touch on the monster arena a little bit, but I wanted to get your perspective on the sheer numbers that this game introduces into Final Fantasy. We touched on breaking the damage limit earlier. Do we feel did they really needed to design such crazy numbers in 10? Because they started going crazy with numbers in 7 when the weapons were introduced. In 8, they followed suit, but on a much neater degree with Omega. He was the highest HP enemy, and even if you're low level, he only had like 250,000, which was reasonable. 9 eliminated. 65,000, I think a Quail has the most health in the game or something like that. Quail and like the friendly Yan. Whatever. Now we have bosses that have 10 million health. Come Final Fantasy X. You have 30,000 health on your summons or on one of your characters. You're hitting for almost 100,000 damage. Did we really think this added anything to Final Fantasy X?
It kind of feels like the WoW problem, what WoW ran into after a while, where, I mean, the original game, you'd hit for 500 damage, and it's like, holy shit, I nuked that guy. Yeah. And then in the next expansion, it's like, oh man, I hit for 2,000 damage, I nuked that guy. And then the next expansion, it's like, oh, I hit for 1,000,000 damage, I nuked that guy. It's this scaling that just rockets up so quickly. And that's what they ended up doing here, I feel like, after scaling it back down with 9, which was really weird. I do and I don't like it, because it just feels like bigger numbers to be bigger numbers, just to have it like something to set it apart. Mm-hmm. But the way that they designed it, I mean, having you level up so much that you max out a ton of your stats so that you can try to take advantage of all these new systems is kind of an interesting idea.
What about you, Morag? You seem like you liked it.
I actually agree with Slack on this. Like, it's always interesting to go and see how a person decides to go and balance a game, especially around numbers. One game that I think you forgot to go and say, though, Happy, would be Final Fantasy V. Final Fantasy V was one of the first characters that allowed you to customize your character in almost any way, but they gave you almost zero challenge, enough of a challenge to actually matter. But FF5 was one of the first games that
had super bosses.
That had the super bosses as well, too, and allowed you to come up with strategies. But it also had a very good linear style of numbers to allow you to actually go and figure out what you're going to do. But again, not a lot of challenges to actually use and abuse a lot of your strategies around. At least with this, you know, there are different ways to go and get your characters with pure numbers and gear. That was it. Numbers and gear, everyone ended up having the same type of stats.
Yeah.
But your gear was the main thing that allowed you to go and customize your character and what they ended up doing. Whereas with FF5, you know, there was the numbers and whatnot, but it was all about what abilities you were using, even though every character could get every single ability you wanted. But that was your classification, because you could only have some characters with a certain amount of abilities. You couldn't have every single character with every single ability. So it's kind of the same thing. Are you just gonna inflate with numbers, or are you gonna try and do certain abilities to try and get a boss down? So
I would say that Ten's bigger problem is the homogenization in a way, not even just of the characters, but of the way that you achieve these great numbers. It's just go in there and hit things with your weapon. There's no variety to it. There's no character that's like, oh, I want to use magic on them. I should want to use magic on them. Every character, if you're going to go for max damage, it's going to be through basic attacks. The other problem it has is that you go from the 9999 damage cap, and then you are just instantly, like the next step, you're here, and now you're way up here. Your goal is just this one. There's no in between.
It's basically like you're back to doing 1,000 damage, because now you're doing 10,000 of 100,000, whereas as compared to doing 1,000 out of 10,000.
Yeah,
I agree. Like,
there's no in between that you ever shoot for.
Well, it's like even then, like running into some of these super bosses and they instantly hit you for quadruple 5. Yeah. I didn't really
quadruple 5.
Quadruple
9s. I don't.
Sextuplet damage.
It's like anyway, the point is, it didn't make sense. I wish that they did end up having a better scale of what boss you could end up doing. But by that point, I think they already realized that people already knew how to exploit the game if they got to that point, and bosses would have meant nothing anyway. And that if people, like, those bosses were already there for people that cared and put the effort into the game. If you didn't put your effort into the game, you know what? Let's put it this way. If you're playing the game and you enjoyed it, you didn't even see any of the extra bosses, you're not even going to know that they exist. You beat the game and you're done. But for the people that are actually wanting to beat the game, and they did all the little side content, they saw the super bosses, and they're just like, oh boy, this is fun. But they notice that all of them are hitting for, but let's say they didn't notice all of them were hitting for 99. You know, they go out, they find one boss. They're like, let's go and beat this boss. And they go and beat it. But they completely missed boss like 1, 2, and 3 they should have beat first. And then they just wipe the floor easily. because they were a lower number. Instead of coming up with an actual strategy, like if they created that do this boss, then this boss, and this boss, and this boss for endgame content, I think they would have lost. No one would have known to do super bosses in a certain order because the person would have just done it. They would have just ended up beefing up their characters because they knew how to, because they exploited the system already at that point, and making easier content wouldn't have made the game.
They could have had it gated. Like, you have to do this boss and then this one and then this one. Because, I mean, that's basically what you have
almost
to do.
like trial mode of 12, where you go up one by one by one by one.
But if you gate it, then it just feels like it's progression limited. I'd rather just let me play the game. I've already put this much time in. Let me enjoy it. Stop gating it. Let me enjoy this. It's one of the main reasons why I hate WoW now, is because they gate everything. You have to do stuff in a certain way with other people. Just let me play the game.
And for me, like, they could have even just opened that up sooner. Like, have you around 2/3 of the way through the game, have you start hitting around the damage cap, and then have you be able to break it, instead of it like, this is totally end game stuff.
It's literally like you just opened a book to end game.
Yeah, but you can do that. They let you go into Comlands. They let you get.
To be fair, by the Comlands, Bahamut was already meleeing for 16,000.
Like you can, if you want to, by that point, break the game and start going and ramping up to those end game bosses if you wish.
You can't really do too much of it by Calmlands. You have to wait a while. You basically need the airship to do a lot of it.
That's what I'm saying, is at Calmlands, you can start breaking the game.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, I actually started breaking the game a little earlier. So one thing we didn't really get to touch upon when we touched minigames was the lightning bolts and the blitzball match. Now, if you're not going to do them for the weapon, there are some other rewards in the game that are far more valuable. At 50 lightning bolts dodge, you get 3 strength spheres, and that's plus 12 strength at that point in the game. Literally, from that point on, whoever touches those strength spheres will kill everything they touch.
Yeah, that's at least 1,000 extra damage.
Yeah, that's why I had Riku. Like, I put all 3 of those spheres on Riku and Riku's path, which what's his face?
Kimahri.
Mari. So they were my 2 main damage dealers for a while. Again, yeah, but like you said, you can break that. And plus, there is ways to get your level 4 and level 3 spheres early in the game if you really want to farm them out. And you can get some of those extra spheres as well, too, if you want to farm them out. And that's where speedrunners end up already knowing all those strategies and know how to break the game by that point. If you care about the game enough, you'll find a way to break it. If you want to go and farm stuff out, you're going to find a way to break it. Just like every other Final Fantasy we've played, there are ways to break the games if you want to.
There's always a way to break the game. That is the important thing. Lightning bolts in this case being one of them.
Before you reach the giant open space.
So 13, if you want to talk about a game that really fucked up numbers, that game just ignore numbers.
Actually, no, you're right. 13 doesn't.
13, I'm like literally. Do you understand that the damage cap in 13 without breaking it is 99,999. With breaking it is 999,999 per hit.
Actually, now that you were saying, I don't know. Like FF13 is like the one game that I don't know if there is any craziness that.
I don't think so, because they keep you from leveling up too much.
They gate you.
But what's really sucks about 13 is that they cut you from leveling and then they throw you into Grand Pulse where almost everything will kill you.
Yeah.
Which is nice in a sense, because there's a sense of danger, like, holy shit, this huge open field. I can see enemies, like, flying around and fighting each other. It's one of the best environments in terms of feeling threatening for a later game chapter, I feel, in any Final Fantasy game. That being said, it's completely nightmarish because they hinder you so much. And then on top of that, it starts costing, you go from needing like 400 CP to 6,000 CP per level almost immediately. Yeah.
For 13, the easiest way to break it right now is you can get sprint shoes before Grand Pulse.
So sprint shoes before Grand Pulse you get from getting a Teodric crown, leveling it up and dismantling it. I believe those are called Hermes shoes. No, sprint shoes are Teodric tiara. There's an enemy, any enemy that drops a Teodric crown can also drop a tiara. You can get one on Chapter 11 from Seath Mission 7, I think, or you can get it from a Seath you fight earlier. I know that because I looked all that up yesterday, and I did not get the tiara, unfortunately. But you can attempt to farm the tiara from Seath Mission 7 if you really want to. And that breaks that. He's right. That absolutely breaks the game. It's unbelievably overpowered if you do.
Well, I know, what is it like with 13 for me? Like first time play through it, I could not beat the final boss unless I had haste.
Bartandalus, I'm sorry, Orphan, poison, and hope that you kill him before he dooms you. Pretty much.
Yeah, so it's like I end up always bringing Saz, bring your haste, and you can beat it no matter what.
So for my chat asking if you get the tiara from Sid, you can get a crown or a tiara from Sid. I got the crown. If you get the crown, you get Hermes sandals. If you get the tiara, you get sprint shoes.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then Grand Pulse is what, chapter 13?
11. Chapter 11 is Grand Pulse.
Oh, okay. So
Chapter 13 is Orphan.
Okay. Oh, right. It ends at the 13th chapter. So, I mean...
Get it? Because it's Final Fantasy 13. It has 13 chapters. It's so clever. It's so clever.
Clever, right?
So clever.
So, I mean, by the point that you can get that, I mean, that's chapter 11, that's Grand Pulse. That's when you can farm up everything anyway.
But you can't get
getting
death
that
until
sooner.
after chapter 11. You can't get death on Vanille until chapter 12. That's when you can death farm the ore choices.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
I
going
thought-
back to Final Fantasy X, we've pretty much covered the majority of 10. We're not going to spend an entire another hour and a half talking about this. I would like to very briefly bring up the imaginary sequel, and that is the joke in my chat. So as soon as we beat Final Fantasy X in my chat, someone in my chat was like, and these characters never were in another game ever. And I was like, yes, I'm so thankful they decided to end the story here and never make any other games or audio novels.
That ruins one of the few good moments that Tidus has as a character in 10.
Right. So 10-2 exists, unfortunately. And now, I say unfortunately only because the story is complete and utter scooped dog shit. Pretty much. And then scooped and then left out in the hot sun to dry so it sticks to the scoop. And then when you're scraping it off, it just won't leave. That's pretty much 10-2 story in a nutshell, for me at least.
I have not played it yet. I have heard great things about the gameplay and terrible things about the story.
That's the other side of it. It has probably one of the most well-done gameplay systems of any Final Fantasy game ever.
Do you plan on playing it, Slack?
I want to try to. I owe a playthrough to a viewer, but I don't know when I'm going to get around to it. But I will at some point.
So there's two ways to play the game. From what I can tell, because when I played it, my goal was to 100% it the very first time through. Don't do that.
Don't.
No,
Absolutely don't.
So how you progress in 10-2 is okay. So right now at the end of 10, you have the airship, right? So it kind of takes off right from there in 10-2. You have the airship. You have access to the entire world. And what ends up happening is it's chapter based.
Yeah.
And you have to go through and hit hotspots on the world map in order to progress the story.
Progress the story, yeah. You have to trigger the right flag.
Yeah. But if you want 100% it, you have to hit every single area and do every single thing and talk to every single NPC in
multiple times.
In every single chapter. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not fun.
Google the fucking end cutscene.
And it will ruin.
I don't want to Google the cutscene because, again, it ruins what happens at the end of 10. I know the idea of the final cutscene.
If you play it, just hit the hotspots.
Yeah.
Hit up the areas you want to, but ignore everything else. That is my
especially
my
Mount Gagazet. Mount Gagazet is the 100% killer because you need each conversation about 7 times from like each of the Rontos, and it's very easy to miss a single line that one of them says and then lose the 100%.
And there's one area like you get to go into the Farplane spoilers in 10-2, and there is one area where you have to do a button press during a cutscene, and if you miss it,
miss 100%.
Completely hooped it, and that's where I lost mine.
Another one, and there's an achievement for this. You know, you remember Macon from 10? The guy who tells you about each of the... There's a part where you have to listen to him do a full explanation of about 12 minutes of dialogue, and you cannot interrupt him once.
Yeah.
If you interrupt him, if you don't interrupt, first of all, this is for an achievement on Steam. I swear it's legitimately 12 minutes. You have to listen. The only options it starts giving you on the screen is like, oh my god, shut up, and please, I can't take anymore. And you have to not ever select those options, or you will not get 100%.
Yeah. So when you play the game, just enjoy it for the combat and look past everything else.
One thing else about 10-2 on the Steam version is because it's the international version, it comes with Last Mission, which is actually quite good. It's hit or miss with some people. I think it's pretty good. It also comes with a few buffs and nerfs to some of the stuff that made the original 10-2 breakable, including the catnip accessory, which is not broken in 10-2 international. In 10.2 originally, it makes it so when your critical health, every hit is 9,999.
Okay.
And so you would go to gunner and you just shoot
Yeah.
like 13 times, and that's how you break everything. It doesn't work. I think it's like auto haste or something in International.
That's not even close. to
Not
the
even
same
close.
thing.
Or like auto berserk or something. But the big thing in 10.2 is you can capture enemies and use them as party members. So like you can use Brother as a party member. You can use like Orin and a bunch of other people as party members. You can literally take Pain, Yuna, and fucking Riku all out of the party and just play it with the monsters, but they're not controllable. That's the downside. So you pretty much the way that you have to kind of give them a combination, and some of them are more than one. Like a large sized party member is all 3 party members. A medium size takes up 2 party slots, and a regular size takes up 1. So you can break the game using that, and there's a different gameplay element there that wasn't available before. If you do just that piece of content enough, you can get through the whole game and just shit on everything ridiculously easily. And there's also new jobs, like the Sidekick, which is very overpowered and gotten very early on in 10.2 International. Literally, if you just mute the game and play it, you'll probably love it, because you won't be annoyed by any of it.
And you're not allowed to hate Brother in any way.
Yeah, you're not allowed to hate Brother. Party! Woohoo! He's going to do that a lot. He's going to do that. Let's just say he's learned too much English at this point.
Far too much English.
But not enough at the same time.
Look, your cat already wants you to play 10.
So what kind of cat is that, by the way? Because we actually just got a cat. And
Tortie.
Ours,
Tortoiseshell.
we thought ours was a Maine Coon at first. We think it's a sort of forest cat, something forest cat. He's not comfortable enough to let us do that yet. Unfortunately, he's still hiding under the bed. He's still hiding under the bed, so he's just still barely. Yeah. So if you're gonna play 10.2, it's great gameplay wise, but that dog shit analogy again for the story. So
I might end up playing it. My chat.
Listen, it's okay. Here's my recommendation for you: get a turbo controller. Right? There's a part early in the game where there's a Moogle hiding in a corner, and every time you talk to it, it heals you, and enemies run at you automatically. So if you have a turbo controller, you can just heal. You leave it on overnight, you heal. The enemies keep running to you. You auto battle through those fights, and you're level 99 by the time you wake up. So
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
you don't get any job experience for this, but your character levels are good.
Man, all I remember is that I enjoyed that combat system so much, and I want to see if it still lives up to.
It still does. I feel like it still does. Even though I only played it for like maybe 5 or 6 hours a few months ago, not even as part of Count Up, the gameplay was still as good as I remember. Honestly, I feel the speed up feature, other than grinding, kind of destroys the combat. It makes it much less enjoyable. I would avoid using the speed up function as much as possible.
I've only used speed up so far just for the monster grinding, and that's all I've used it in any of the games so far.
Yeah, I would say in 10.2 it destroys the fun of the combat system the most of any of the Final Fantasy games with speed ups. So yeah, there you go. And then finally we have Will. Nobody wants to talk about Will. Will is an audio novel that takes place after the events of 10.2.
Oh, right, never mind.
Oh, that thing. Yeah, I haven't watched that yet.
Don't.
I haven't. I've heard complete mixed things about it, and like when I did end up playing 10.2, and I just like, this is a full-on fanfic. This game literally is just fanfic for the game. They felt like it shouldn't have been made because I did everything in it. I think I just hated it.
It's got relationship drama. It's got Sin coming back. It's got like shit that doesn't make any sense in it. So
I heard that it's just not worth it.
Just don't do it. Just don't do it. All right.
Did we want to talk about the final dungeon for 10 at all? The final dungeon,
final
boss,
dungeon's horseshit in 10. I hate it.
From what I remember, like I haven't gone in there yet on this playthrough. I remember it just being so bad, like it really like hard. And
the enemies in there are no fun allowed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. First of all, it's not a very interesting dungeon. Oh, I can't see the floor. Fucking cry me a river.
I like that concept in a game that has a mapping
system
system where it's always mapped for you. But then, I don't know. It's just not done interesting there. It's just a boring dungeon.
Then you beat Seymour for the fucking final time, and they were like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we should send him this time."
Yeah, we were supposed to do that.
And then there's another section where maybe you just run through it. There's a few enemies along the way, and then for some fucking reason, they're like, "You know what we should make them do before they fight the final boss?
Open treasure chests and
open 10 fucking treasure chests for items they are only going to get to use between now and the boss fight, because you can't save." And yeah, and then there's crystals that pop out of the ground, and you have no control over the camera, and it spins very slowly. And it's like, it's probably the worst final dungeon, I feel, of any Final Fantasy game. By the way, when talking about 12, I would consider Pharos the final dungeon, not the Sky Fortress Bahamut, because that's literally just like two rooms and then 4 boss fights back to back. I'd say it's probably the worst designed final dungeon of any Final Fantasy game in 10.
I'm gonna still say best is FF6.
I like 6. I really actually liked
8.
After having played through it again, I ended up actually growing to like Pharos in Final Fantasy 12.
Which place is that one?
Pharos is the lighthouse where you have you have to go up 100 floors. And you have to kill the things that spawn the you have to collect black orbs to open up the things, and then you need to kill the dudes that look like torches to make platforms, and there's hidden walls with secret
right. Okay, yeah, and then it's got the dungeon, the basement area.
It's just incredibly long, and then it has the Subterra, which is an end game zone, which is
did I remember watching you like on a Camla stream?
Late night Camla stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that area.
And even looking at other endgame dungeons in 10, because of the monster arena, 10 doesn't make much effort to make very interesting endgame dungeons. Even the Omega Ruins, the most interesting thing about the Omega Ruins are the treasure chests, which are complete bullshit. The ones that
you don't get to see a map. Well, you do, but you have to discover yourself first.
Yeah, like the treasure chest that, if you manage to open all of them, then you'll get this bonus reward, but it's random whether or not you'll open it. So you have to
save scum
it in order to try and hope you get the RNG to open them all. It's not a very interesting mechanic, and the rest of the dungeon, like the most dangerous thing about the place is Great Malboros if you don't have first strike, because you're done pretty much if you run into a Great Malboro.
Yeah, you're dead. If you don't have first strike and you do have ribbon, then what the hell were you doing? So in other words, if you don't have first strike, you're screwed.
Yeah, 10 overall is pretty disappointing on the dungeon front. It focuses more on the journey and less on creating a dungeon with an end goal, pretty much for the whole game.
There's really only one place that felt like a dungeon, and then that was the Elbed hometown when you first.
I'm annoying, huh? I'm annoying, huh?
I don't remember what I forget what I thought it was saying, but mine was doing it double for some strange reason.
Did you mod the music?
No, I didn't. I was getting it twice.
I'm annoying, huh? I'm annoying, huh? I'm annoying.
Pretty much. It was like ba-da, 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 ba-da.
Oh my god.
Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. It was like, no, stop. Anyway, I somehow doubled it. I did zero modding to this game, by the way. Both 9 and 10. Zero modding.
Yeah, I don't see anything to mod really on the internet.
You mod in the Titus OST.
That's right, an annoying tug.
Here, I'll send you guys the mod that you need.
Right, no. That's
no, I'm good. I don't need to play through 10 anymore.
It's quite fine.
No, I mean, I think you'll like it better.
No, it's quite fine. Happy.
If you're sure.
No, I
think you'll regret saying no later.
I'm 130% sure if I know exactly what you're gonna link me.
I think that you're missing a great opportunity here for both of you and your viewers.
I've already said, if you want me to play that mod, it's $100 or a minute.
No, it needs to be more than a minute, because he needs to at least be able to enjoy the songs.
No, $100 a minute. That is my.
The good news is there's less than 60 tracks, so if we play you a second of each track, it would probably work really well in a minute. So.
That's okay. I've already had people spamming me, sending me every single.
I know. I've had it too, but I've just been playing them before my stream starts. All of them. This morning's was the opera from Final Fantasy VI. That's his newest one. Good old Johnny Mac. Good old Johnny Mac. All right. So one last thing I want to touch on, because Count Upcast is about looking up to Final Fantasy 15 and how these games will inspire different aspects of Final Fantasy 15. This is the game that really began the HP sponge, the HP bloat of enemies. And even in episode, I would say this is the one that really made it severe, and that 13 and 12 take it to a whole nother fucking level.
Well, this is what I was talking about, and what Slack was saying earlier. Just like the difference of design, of like, is it really needed? Do you need that much HP? Like, WoW, like MMOs have that same problem of inflating numbers quickly. Like,
but where I was going with that is with Final Fantasy 15, they've already touted. Yeah, I almost said toted. I've done that before. They've touted massive bosses that, you know, are very powerful, and you'll have to be very careful in the way that you fight them. And in Episode to Sky, you kind of see that with Deadeye the Behemoth to some degree. You see it with the Catoblepas enemy in the 2.0 of the Episode to Sky demo. Do we think that that this HP bloat thing is going to be a reason for longer fights? Just HP bloat alone for longer fights in Final Fantasy 15.
It'll probably happen.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 had the first fight where you were talking about Penance, 20 to 30 minute fight of just a really boring like strategy, just the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. And then 12 comes along. The only super bad one there is Yasmat. The rest of them are at least semi-interesting. And then 13 came along, and I think it wasn't until Lightning Returns where they made a boss with 65 million HP, something like that.
Aeronite on hard mode has 59 million something health, but with the Chaos modifier, he regenerates health. I think it's like 0.3% of his health every second. So his effective HP pool ends up being a great deal higher than that. Yeah. It's pretty fucking stupid.
If you were even to take a look at like any type of RPG, any type of MMO, for that fact too, and seeing boss progression, you either have to do it through pure mechanic. You either hit it or you don't hit it, or you inflate the numbers to deal with size. I'd say that there hasn't been a ton of bosses that have handled mechanic with time very well, because it's all about execution. Like that was WoW for the longest time. It was purely a numbers game.
Yeah.
Do you have the right gear check to go and kill it? Even like if people remember back when Encourage first came out, they purposely made it so that you could not beat certain bosses because they hit so hard, even with the highest eye level gear for that place. It wasn't until people were like, Blizzard, what you doing? That they actually nerfed it down to an acceptable level that it was actually possible to do it. So again, like, is it going to be ability based? Or is it going to be number based?
I'd say the closest they've gotten in the Final Fantasy series so far has been Ozma, funny enough. As broken as a lot of the other 9 mechanics are, the biggest problem that Ozma has is that the ATB system in that game is really junky. And he as a boss is total mechanics check of manipulating the ATB system and basically using that against
him. Which Morag said he loved because it made their broken ATB system have a reason.
Well, yeah, like 9's broken ATB system, you could find ways to play around with it. There was a reason to do certain things, to pause the game.
It added a skill factor.
Yeah, it did. It allowed you to exploit their own system if you wanted to.
Yeah. And Ozma was a check of that, of even just basic understanding of ATB knowledge of that game. Pretty much. And that's the question with 15, with it being an action-based RPG and not a turn-based RPG, where it draws the line on things you have to dodge versus just whacking the enemy.
There will be no line. The line will be non-existent, and it will just take them and smash them together, so that you have to sit there and dodge attacks for 5 minutes straight, but also deal 20 million HP of damage to the guy.
That sounds like my first time fighting Lingering Will in Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, where I had no idea what to do, and I was so fucking frightened to try and attack him ever. Those were good times. All right, I noticed that one of you added soundtrack, which last week we did talk about the placement of music in Final Fantasy IX, and that we said we were going to touch up on it again this week regarding Final Fantasy X. I want to know where you guys sit on that and where it bothers.
The original or
I used the arranged.
I used the arranged as well.
Because it was my first time playing the International. I've heard the original so many times that I wanted to try something different. Mostly very good. At the very least, it was side grades, except for like 2 songs.
There's a couple there.
Yeah, the first time that Orange shows up not in Dream Xanarkand, but later on when you're up against the Luca Goers in Blitzball, when he shows up there, I think it was. The music that plays for him sounded terrible. Every other song sounded really good. I actually forgot that I had the arranged version on until we brought it up just now.
The combat music I love so much more than the...
This is probably the best combat theme in the series.
Yeah. Every time you get into it, you're almost like, yes, let's fight it, let's kill it. But even then, like the Seymour fight, like that super duper like crazy Seymour fight soundtrack or like super boss type of soundtrack is I love it every single.
The only thing that can make the Seymour theme better is if Tidus's laugh was modded into it.
I can't kill you right now. I can't right click kick. I can't mute. I can't do anything in this. There is no...
You have no power here. I hold all the cards. I could stop your video if I wanted to. I can mute your audio. I could also make you the host and give you the power. Oh, man. And that's always been a strength of Final Fantasy. What can you do? Now, God damn it. Oh, man. That's why I have a mute audio button. Oh, my God. He has so many of them. Why does he have so many?
Probably for the bathcasts.
Yeah, probably. I suppose. Why does he have so? Why are they in what looks to be a pouch for chocolate coins?
That's a... when you chew
ducks.
5 gum, take 5 gum.
Oh man, so many fucking ducks, so many duck and fucks. There you go. Yeah, I think that when it comes to music, 10 is really up there for me. I love a lot of the music of the series, but 10 kind of hits the nail. I think the only game's music I like more than 10 is actually 13's. I think 13 as a series overall probably has my favorite arrangement of music tracks.
Huh. I really like 13's music, but for me, I think I still have to go with 6.
You know, it's funny. I downloaded the 13 soundtrack before the game came out, and I love and hated it at the same time. I absolutely hated the fact that they were trying to do like these different types of arrangements in the music, and then when I played it, it made so much more sense. Everything fell into place, and I loved it then afterwards. Yeah. But then the 13-2 soundtrack came out, and then they did everything a million times better. And the 13-2 soundtrack is by far still one of my favorites that to this day is like the only FF soundtrack I actually have on my phone that I still listen to this day. It's so good. Don't get me wrong, the 6 soundtrack is really good.
Yeah, 6 is my favorite, not because of the soundtrack though, it's everything else. Like I love 6's music, and it's my favorite of the 16-bit, 8-bit era, like from 1 to 6 kind of deal. But in terms of like considering the orchestras and shit that they use for like a lot of the later games, I can't help but just like I could listen to those on the go. I don't think I could listen to Final Fantasy VI music like on the go.
No, I can't. There's only a select few songs that I can. There's only so many times you can listen to Rachel's theme over or lock.
It's okay because luckily, if you really enjoy like the best song in Final Fantasy VI is "Dancing Mad" by most people's opinion. Luckily, if you really want to hear it with the Tidus laugh in there, that's available on the internet. Yo, what would you do if we made...
I hate being caught in this crossfire!
You know what the worst part is? Because now I'm thinking of these songs with the duck instead.
So I was getting so bored of some of like the monster grinding and everything. I was using the duck part of the music. I was just squeezing the duck while grinding, listening to music, like song requests, everything. I was just... It's like, there was a time where I was trying to figure out the meta of squeezing the duck. How many different ways can I squeeze this duck to get the right squeezes?
I really want someone to make a gif of you squeezing that duck when
I was doing that while I was trying to sit there behind the net with blitz balls. Like, what's the best way I can squeeze this to get the best amount of squeaks out of it? Can I get double squeak if I hold it this way and squeeze it this way?
Now I want one of those just to make all the soundtracks with the duck. Just like...
Well, no, and the cool thing is you squeeze once in, and then you squeeze out.
Duck mechanics. Endgame duck mechanics.
We'll have a whole count-up cast dedicated just to duck mechanics. Tell you what.
Overall, how do we feel about Final Fantasy X after all these years? I know this is literally my 4th or 5th time replaying it. That includes the monster.
Every time I play,
this is about my 4th or 5th, maybe 6th.
Yeah, 3rd time playing it, it gets better every time.
It's probably in my top 5.
Yep.
And spoiler, after playing Final Fantasy 12 IZJS again, I think that might be my number 3.
Ooh.
I've been having a lot of fun with it already. Like, I felt bad for taking a day off yesterday because I was like, I just want to play Final Fantasy 12 right now. I just want to do it.
You're that addicted, huh?
Yeah, I'm getting there. Yeah, but this one is definitely in my top 5. Maybe as number 4. As much as I don't like the story that they tell, just about everything else about the game is great.
This game's number 2 for me. I think I mentioned that earlier. It's my second favorite Final Fantasy.
I-
My hardest one to pick is a third. I can't pick a third favorite.
That's
Final
where
Fantasy.
I'm at. Like Final Fantasy 6 and then 7 and then half a dozen other ones.
I don't know. I don't even know where I'd place 10. I know it's top 5. At like 13, 2, and 6 are my 2s at least. 10 might be my third. I don't know. But I enjoyed. You know what? Oddly enough, we were talking about combat. I still enjoy 7's combat more than 10. It was just so much faster. It was still super fast, and because it is ATV versus the weight system's nice. But imagine, and this is where 10-2's combat system comes to play.
Which, by the way, goes back to being ATB.
It's ATB with a mix of what this is, and you can have the combo moves and everything. It's just
Yeah,
Man,
it has a lot of positives.
I think I might have to play Tendu just for the combat again.
Just remember, mute everything.
I think I might have to. Actually, you know what was real nice in the PC version? Being able to mute the voices.
You know how else you can do that? Just take your headphones off.
Hey, I want to make sure the same experience I was getting, my viewers were getting.
So you want to? Well, if that was the case for me, I guess vomiting profusely would be an experience I guess I could share with everyone. Because the only time I played 10 when I first got 10-2 when I was a kid, I was sick. Like I was actually sick home from school, and I was throwing up. But between going to the bathroom to throw up, I would just pause the game to go throw up and come back, and then I just keep playing. It's like, I can't sleep, I can't stop throwing up, so I'm just gonna play this instead. Not a great experience. That may be a reason why I like the game a little less than most people. Because I'm related to that memory.
I mean, maybe it was the game that was making you throw up.
It's
Ooh.
it's quite possible. I would believe it.
Anything else?
Anything else? No, I think we've pretty much covered. Oh, where is it? I said 2. You said 4. I think Slack.
It's somewhere around there, yeah.
And then where are you? What are you putting it on, Morag? Where are you going? Like, where is it on your scale?
Like I said, it might be number 3.
3? Okay. Yeah, that massage scene was definitely not the part I vomited, though, in 10-2. I'm just saying, best minigame of all time.
I don't remember much of.
You'll remember when you get to it, the massage scene in 10-2. You'll remember it, my friend.
I just remember running around like Guado Salon.
Oh,
like,
you'll remember.
You'll
remember the sound she makes, especially if you have the Japanese voices turned on. Oh yeah, that's a thing. As for announcements for the week, anything related to 15, there's some new gameplay coming out of EGX. That's about it. King's Knight is still on its way. It's not out yet.
The 15 is balanced and what is not balanced? Not the word balanced. Optimized for the regular PS4, but it will have accelerated options for the PS4 Pro.
Which I have pre-ordered officially.
I wish I could. I don't have the money for it.
Yeah, I don't want to put the money down on that.
I'm only doing it because I was like, you know what? I do this for a fucking living. I might as well just start buying every fucking console that comes.
I really want to.
I mean, it's fucking whatever. It's not gonna. It's fucking, I'm not even gonna use the 4K option. I don't have a fucking 4K.
When are we gonna start streaming to 4K? Honestly, I do it strictly just because of higher frame rate. That's the only reason why I would get it.
That's why. That's pretty much what I'm gonna use it for. Yeah, is the higher frame rate. I hope it doesn't have any issues with my Elgato when I first get it, when it first releases. I don't know if they're gonna have any HTTP locks on it or anything. Hopefully not. That would be really fucking stupid if they did. All the same. Yeah, now you're thinking about it too. I doubt that's going to be a problem.
Well, if you have a nice proper splitter, you don't need to worry.
Yeah, I have a splitter anyway, so I have a way around it. Thank you, Ray, for getting that as a gift for me for my PlayStation TV. That was a birthday gift. Was it a birthday gift?
Oh yeah, no, I set up the PS3 and everything too. to make sure that it was working. So, and that no, I'm happy the splitter worked perfectly. No HDCP.
Yep.
I love you. I love
Beautiful.
you, splitter.
Beautiful, beautiful thing.
Is it even possible to stream at 4K? Not on Twitch, no.
No.
Actually, it is possible. If you talk to a staff member, they'll unlock it for you.
They do that for big esports events at times.
But even then, it's not worth it, because to make 4K look even half plausible, like
power you need.
number one, I don't think the player can fully support it unless they again unlock it for you. And yeah, like it doesn't even matter. Your monitor won't work for it properly. Like it'll just look like a grainy piece of shit for you.
And on top of that, majority of your chat, if they try to play it on source, they will probably not be able to load it. So, like, you're not even, like, the amount of people...
That's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, but the amount of people who could feasibly even watch it in 4K is not that high. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like wasted resources.
It's going to look grainy for you.
Yeah, it's going to look pretty shit. All right, so on that note, everybody, I think we're going to wrap up this show. Next week, we'll be talking about Final Fantasy 12. And while there is only technically one version of 12 that exists, fortunately, we will have... What?
Next week, we don't cast.
Next episode, then.
Next episode, yeah.
2
It's
weeks from now.
TwitchCon.
Yeah, that thing.
Oh, yeah, that thing. Kind of
Yeah,
important.
TwitchCon.
Sort
The
of a big
weekend that we
deal.
were
Well,
supposed to
TwitchCon's
come back.
technically over Sunday. I mean...
And when are you getting home?
I'll be home in 10 minutes.
Oh, all right.
I live in
Cheater.
San Diego.
Mm.
Hey, we'll just do it all from my house. Everyone stays till Monday.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll just all round table it. There you go. Perfect. We're not doing that. Anyway.
Actually,
Aw.
yeah, my plane doesn't leave till 3 o'clock.
No, you're not going to make your plane.
No, I lied. My plane lands at 3 o'clock. I leave at like 10 in the morning.
Yeah, there's no way that's happening. Next week, we get to talk about... I'm sorry, next episode, we get to talk about Final Fantasy 12 and the adventures of Bosch von Ronsenberg of Dalmasca. It's a great game because there's 4 main characters in it and only that many. So we're going to have a great time talking about
Actually, I'm really happy this lined up the way it did, because I'll get 2 days here, and then when I get back, I get that whole week to go and play it. Because I don't know
You're gonna need
how I'm
that
going to play 12 yet. I'm probably going to ignore all Monster Hunts and just play the game.
Do it. Trust. Like, listen, man. I would be done with 13 right now if I just hadn't tried to do Yasmat. But the good news is next week we will have a varied view. We will be able to talk about both international and normal, because Slack is playing international, and Morag and I are playing the original version.
I'll put it this way. I've been enjoying it so much that I've already thought up ideas to do something similar to the 4-job fiesta of Final Fantasy V for this. Of having like a 6-job fiesta
Are you gonna make it happen next summer?
I might, yeah. When the Zodiac Age comes out, I might do something.
The thing about
like that.
Zodiac Age is it makes a little bit more sense in Zodiac Age because there's the rumor going around. It's just a rumor that you will be able to change jobs in Zodiac Age once you've set them at the cost of having an entirely separate license board per job. It's a rumor, but I think that can only make 12's The thing is, it makes the decision of picking a job better, but it eliminates the error of if you pick poor jobs, you actually may have to start Final Fantasy 12 all over again.
I think you can get through 12, at least through the story of 12.
With any set of jobs, but if you want to do any of the extra stuff, you're missing any job
Ultima,
combinations.
Yasmat, and Zodiark. Those are the big 3, I think.
Yeah, and then you have trial mode on top of that, which is its own set of problems. But we'll be talking about that next week. I'm sorry, next episode. God damn it. Next episode,
man.
which is in 2 weeks. It is not this week. This was actually the week count up was supposed to be done. And we were supposed to have actually done an episode on Final Fantasy 12 this week originally, which is funny because it means we would have never had an episode about Final Fantasy 13.
No.
With the original
We're supposed to have... This was supposed to be 13 this week. But
No, we were starting 13 this week.
No, we were supposed to start playing it this week, and the cast was originally
And we were going to
supposed
have like 3, maybe 4 days, depending on when we were leaving.
Yeah, we were supposed to start 13 on Sunday,
Yep.
and then beat
right.
it by the 30th, and then start 15, and then this week would have been the count-up cast for 12 in the original schedule. Luckily, they delayed the game 2 months, so we have more time. Thank goodness they delayed it.
Da, 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 da.
Party! Woohoo!
Quack, 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 quack.
Listen, just you wait till you see Brother Intent 2.
I'm being told that there is 22 minutes of gameplay right now for Zodiac Age, if you want to take a look
Yes,
at that.
that was also from EGX.
Mm-hmm, from EGX.
Luckily, I know how Final Fantasy 12 is a game, and I don't need to watch it. Although it is nice to see the textures and to see them use, like, Zodiac Age comes with a lot of what most remasters come with. It has a speed-up option. It has a lot of balancing things. The Zodiac Spear is less of a bitch and more of a bitch at the same time, for example. Yeah.
Well, it's not the best weapon.
It's also not the best weapon in that game. They have that fucking bow that has like 225 attack value or some shit.
Well, there's
like
all sorts of things. I mean, all of the weapons in
Yeah,
International
they're all
are
different.
way better.
Yeah, it's a way better game. It's just a better game.
Yes.
Everything about it is better. That's the bottom line.
I actually haven't seen this either, but there are full-on spoilers. I'm not going to talk about them if you want to or not, but there is a Shiva, but I'm not going to say the other one just in case.
I know what you're talking. Yeah, that's from the TGS trailer, and they've also expanded upon it in a few Japanese magazines and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm looking at magazine screenshots of it right now.
Yeah, that was in the TGS trailer. They showed her.
And the Xbox One gameplay is looking hot.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they've confirmed Scorpio support yet.
Yeah, no one cares about Scorpio. It doesn't come out till like next Christmas. Who cares?
Wait until Andy hears this.
It doesn't come out till next Christmas. This game comes out this Christmas. I care about games that come out this Christmas. I'll care about the Scorpio next year when it's actually
There's
going to be
plenty of time for us to get around to that.
Better question is, with the PS Pro, are you going to be doing the VR?
Yes. And I actually managed. Luckily I have a friend who pre-ordered multiple, and I'm just gonna take one. I'm gonna buy one of his. I've used the PlayStation VR. It works quite well, and the Prompto DLC is made for VR. So I can't wait to play the 15 DLC that is made for VR.
So I just pulled up the vid of the Zodiac Age stuff from EGX. It looks almost exactly like what my playthrough is looking like, because since I'm doing the emulator for
you have the Sweet FX.
Yeah, I can just turn up the textures 6 times.
Yeah. Well, people are wondering if it's gonna look better on on the emulator or their version.
Yep, that's what I wanted to compare. I was like, I wonder if it's gonna be better.
Unfortunately, most of us don't have PS2 BIOS to borrow, so we can't do such fancy things like you can, Slack.
Yeah.
It does look like an improvement.
I will say this though, even on the highest graphical setting on the emulator, even on the new footage, Vaughn still has spray-on abs.
Yeah, I was trying to find a shot of him from the front. That's one of the things I wanted to see the most, unfortunately.
Still has spray-on abs. He will never not have spray-on abs. Actually, in Dissidia, he doesn't have spray-on abs, I don't think. But anyway,
well, isn't that because he's got the puffy shirt on?
Yes, that's because he's got the shirt. Right? So on that note, guys, you're just interrupting me to be a dick at this point, Mark.
No, I was gonna say Triple Triad VR.
No, shut up. Anyway, so that's going to be a wrap for this episode of Count Upcast, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you guys do your little introductions, worst stream, best stream, where to find you, all that fun stuff. One of you. I'll let you guys see. I'll see who breaks.
I am Slackaholicus. I'm going to be playing FF12 International Zodiac Job System version. If you want a taste of what to expect from Zodiac Age coming out next year, swing by my place. I'm going to be playing more of that real soon. It's great. I'm great. You're great. Morag.
I've been feeling dead for the past couple days. I have a headache right now, but I'm going to finish Final Fantasy X today, and it's going to be excellent.
And they can find you
on my channel. Come over to this channel. Oh, by the way, it was pointed out that Slackaholicus' Twitter is misspelt on the overlay.
What, did I go back to the old overlay by
No,
accident?
you have the wrong overlay still,
No,
Morag.
yeah, you have
we
the
have it fixed.
Overlay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I gave you guys the
we
new
discovered it on the day that you were gone, and I meant to tell Happy to send you the right one.
Well, damn. Yeah, someone said
have
it.
Yeah, it's Slackholicus, I think, on yours.
Yeah,
Which
no,
is funny because I swear to God that I said it out loud and looked at it, and I was like, perfect.
I looked at it and I was like, yeah, it's fine. Done.
All right, and then I'm the other Slackaholicus on Twitter. If you want to be incredibly confused, follow us both on Twitter and watch us talk to each other and wonder why that guy's talking to himself. Name's Mr. Happy. I am at the end of Chapter 11 right now in Final Fantasy 13. That being said, Final Fantasy 14's patch 3.4 launches at 3 a.m. PDT tomorrow. I will be live streaming that. I will be doing the world. I won't be doing World Prog, but I'll be streaming the new raids as quickly as possible, as much as I can before TwitchCon, making guides for all that fun stuff. And
I still have the wrong one?
streaming the shit out of it. I'm just going to fucking send it to you both again.
All right, there. No, I've got it. I had the fixed one, but it reverted to the old one.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's what happened.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah. So you can follow me, Mr. Happy1227, everywhere: Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram. And my cat has an Instagram, too. Mel made him one. His name is Aloha Dwayne the Cat Johnson. And whenever we clean the litter box, we can smell what the cat is cooking.
So my chat really liked it when Slack was just grooming the cat. Can we have a cat grooming stream next week or next time?
I can't get my cat in this room yet.
Next
Yeah,
cast.
we can't have. We don't have an episode next week. Morag, God.
I said next cast.
You
this
almost said
episode.
next week. Almost said next week.
I almost.
Yeah, we could be.
I did.
We could be Slackahapicus.
Oh,
There you go.
God.
Slackahapicus.
Mr. Aholicus.
Fusion. Ha! There you go. All right. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, these two gentlemen want to stream. I'm going to grab some water, and I think even I'll continue streaming for a short time before I go to sleep, because I need to go to sleep in like the next 2 hours.
Yeah,
So
how
I
are you
can-
going to pass out? Are you taking some pills?
Dude, I didn't sleep very well last night.
All right, there you go. That'll do it.
I've had a headache all day. I almost fell asleep next to the cat earlier on the floor.
Good luck with the new patch.
Aw.
I will probably be around. Now, I'll actually get to watch one of your streams.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because
Yeah?
you stream when I'm asleep, so then I wake up and you're live, and I'm like, well, I got to get going.
Yeah, it's gonna be a busy day. It's gonna be a busy fucking day tomorrow. Anyway, everyone, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next episode in 2 weeks for Final Fantasy XII. Thank you, and have a good day.
If you're at TwitchCon, come say hi.
Yeah, say hi
my
to
meet,
us at TwitchCon.
My meet and greet's at 10 a.m. Come to the meet and greet.
Mine's Sunday at 2.
You did it. You made it. He doesn't
Sunday?
know.
I had to double check, man. My schedule's silly.